Chapter 2908. The Demon Territory. The Heaven Baron Sect. Brother Feng, I'm sorry. A middle-aged man blushed and said, when we were in trouble, we were taken in by the Heaven Baron Sect. Now that we have to leave, I really feel bad about it. Behind the middle-aged man was a group of cultivators with different cultivation levels. They were all ready to leave the Heaven Baron Sect with the middle-aged man. Feng Kentian just smiled and did not say anything. The middle-aged man and the group of cultivators behind him hesitated for a moment before saying, however, now that the World Devastator Demon Emperor has almost unified the demon realm, this is a general trend that cannot be stopped. For better survival, we can only follow the general trend and submit to the World Devastator Demon Emperor. Brother Feng, why are you still holding on? Why don't you? Feng Kentian shook his head slightly and said indifferently, everyone has their own aspirations, there's no need to say anything more. Hearing this, the middle-aged man blushed and did not try to persuade him anymore. In recent years, there have been some mysterious experts wandering around the Heaven Baron Sect. Brother Feng, please be careful. The middle-aged man added, cupped his fists and turned to leave with the group behind him. Feng Kentian looked at the group of cultivators leaving with a complicated expression. Over the years, the World Devastator Demon Emperor had not touched the Heaven Baron Sect, but compared to the entire demon territory, the Heaven Baron Sect was too weak and insignificant. If the World Devastator Demon Emperor wanted to flatten the Heaven Baron Sect, it would only take a thought. No one knew when this would happen. It was only a matter of time. Under such pressure, more and more cultivators left the Heaven Baron Sect and chose to join the World Devastator Demon Emperor. Moreover, over the years, Araki Takashi had not shown up. There were even rumors in the Heaven Baron Sect that Araki Takashi had died. Now there were only a few kings left in the Heaven Baron Sect. Some Heaven Immortals and True Immortals had also left, leaving almost all the cultivators from the lower world. Although the demon territory ruled by the World Devastator Demon Emperor was a powerful behemoth, these cultivators from the lower world would not have a good life if they joined. Only in the Heaven Baron Sect, they would not be discriminated against, treated unfairly, and would not kill each other over some cultivation resources. Only in the Heaven Baron Sect could they live like humans. I don't know where Master went. It's been so long and there's been no news. Sirius walked over listlessly and complained. Beside him were the 7 emotions demon generals of the Heaven Baron Sect, Ming Kong, Yen Beichen, Demoness Ji, Chiu Siluo, and Gu Tongyu. Demoness Ji's cultivation realm was already higher than the others to begin with. Coupled with the inheritance of the 9 Nether Emperor, she was the first to reach true self realm after cultivating for more than 2,000 years. Following closely behind were Ming Kong and Yen Beichen. Both of them had their own opportunities. Ming Kong inherited the inheritance of Emperor Ananda and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Yen Beichen inherited the inheritance of Emperor Bo Sun. Both of them had just entered the true first realm. Chiu Siluo and Gu Tongyu had also reached the peak of 9th stage Heaven Immortal, and could break through at any time. Senior Feng, don't worry. The World Devastator Demon Emperor hasn't touched the Heaven Baron Sect all these years, and he probably won't do anything in the future. Everyone could see the worry in Feng Kentian's heart and comforted him. Feng Kentian shook his head slightly as he looked into the distance and muttered, actually, I'm not worried about the World Annihilation Devil Emperor. At the edge of the abyss of immortals and demons, there were more than 20 kings gathered. Some of them were from the 9 Heavens immortal realm, while others were wearing monk robes, obviously from the Pure Lands. King and Shirwang, what are we waiting for? Let's go now? A king said, with our battle strength, we can flatten the Heaven Baron Sect. Most of these kings were ordinary kings. There was a peak immortal king from the 9 Heavens immortal realm, and a peak heavenly king from the Pure Lands. Let's wait a little longer. King Shirwang smiled and said, there are a few Taoists from the demon realm, and one of them is called the Poor Demon King. I'm sure everyone has heard of him. The kings felt a chill in their hearts and they all nodded. It was said that the Poor Demon King's true form was an ancient ferocious beast, Cheong Chi. It had immense strength and was extremely ferocious. He was a peak demon king who had been famous for a long time. I didn't expect King Shirwang to be able to invite the Poor Demon King to help. I'm impressed. A rogue cultivator king complimented. These immortal kings and heavenly kings usually considered themselves to be on the righteous path, and talked about slaying demons. However, if they really encountered a demon king, they wouldn't easily make a move. If there were benefits to be gained and they had a common goal, it wasn't unacceptable for them to cooperate. In these people's hearts, many things were just lip service. What they really cared about was their own interests. Brother Wild Wind. King Shirwang looked at a king in the crowd and cupped his fists slightly. He said, I heard that the grand firmament immortal realm is not peaceful recently? Wild Wind King grinned and said, not only is it not peaceful, even the grand firmament palace has changed owners. Hearing this, the other kings all turned to look at him. They had also heard about the situation in the grand firmament immortal realm, but they didn't expect the grand firmament palace to change owners. What about the grand firmament immortal emperor? A king asked. Wild Wind King said, the original grand firmament immortal emperor is dead. Now the grand firmament immortal emperor has been replaced by someone else. The entire grand firmament immortal realm respects him and listens to his orders. The original grand firmament immortal emperor's bloodline has been completely wiped out, and the descendants of the emperor clan were all killed. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. So ruthless? Who is the new grand firmament immortal emperor? How could he have such means? The grand firmament immortal emperor has ruled the grand firmament immortal realm for many years. He has a strong foundation and has a good relationship with the imperial emperors of the other immortal realms. Why didn't the other imperial emperors come to help? Wild Wind King shook his head and said, the new grand firmament immortal emperor is too famous. It is said that he was trapped in the emperor tomb for many years and did not die. Now that he has returned, the imperial emperors of the other immortal realms do not dare to go against him. This imperial emperor seems to be called Immortal Emperor Qinmu. He was originally the ruler of the grand firmament immortal realm. Now that he has returned, he is only taking back what was originally his. The kings sighed again when they heard this. In recent years there had been frequent wars everywhere, and even the heaven realm was not peaceful. There was a world-destroying demon emperor in the demon realm, and he was fighting everywhere. Now, there was such a huge change in the grand firmament immortal realm, and even the imperial emperors were killed. How is the Pure Lands? Did anything big happen? King and Shirwang turned to look at the Buddhist heavenly kings. Amitabha. The peak heavenly king of the Buddhist sect put his palms together and softly recited his Dharma name. A look of reverence appeared on his face as he said in a deep voice, the Pure Lands is peaceful and peaceful. Blessed by the Buddha, a wise man like Lord Six Brahma was born. It was because of Lord Six Brahma's guidance that I was able to break through and cultivate to the complete grotto heaven. Congratulations, congratulations. The other kings all congratulated him and revealed looks of envy. The Buddhist king continued, several imperial emperors of the Buddhist sect were jealous of Lord Six Brahma. They even joined forces to discuss the Tao with Lord Six Brahma, but they were all defeated. In the end, they were enlightened by Lord Six Brahma and became his disciples. Now, under the leadership of Lord Six Brahma, the Pure Lands are fearless even in the face of the world-destroying demon emperor. Lord Six Brahma is the reincarnation of the Buddha. He will become the second great emperor of the Buddhist sect and create an era that belongs to the Buddhist sect. King and Shirwang frowned. In the eyes of this Buddhist king he saw not only respect and admiration, but also a kind of sick fanaticism. End of chapter. Chapter 2909. At this moment, a crack appeared in the surrounding space and 7 figures walked out. They all had gloomy auras, and the one leading them was the poor demon king that King En and the others had just discussed. King and Shirwang had gathered 33 kings, and most of them had been famous for many years. There was no need to introduce them. Everyone is here, let's not delay. Among the 33 kings there were 3 peak kings. King En Shirwang was confident that he could flatten the Heaven Baron sect. It's safer to descend outside the galaxy and go around. Poor Demon King suddenly said in a low voice. King and Shirwang thought about it and understood poor Demon King's concern. Although they could tear the void and descend near the Heaven Baron sect, if the space tunnel passed through the demon domain, it might lead to other changes. Since the Heaven Baron sect was at the edge of the demon domain, they could go around from outside the galaxy. Brother poor Demon King, you're so thoughtful. King and Shirwang praised, then brought the other kings to tear the void and disappeared near the abyss of immortals and demons. Not long after, the 33 kings walked out of the space tunnel, and they were already in the outer galaxy of the Heaven Baron mainland. Standing in the galaxy, they could clearly see the edge of the demon domain of the Heaven Baron mainland, the territory of the Heaven Baron sect. Everyone, I won't take any of the treasures of the Heaven Baron sect. I only want Feng Santian's head. King and Shirwang cupped his hands and said in a low voice, thank you for your help this time. If you have any requests in the future you can send me a message. Senior brother, and don't worry. Heaven's Wrath Immortal King is only at the initial Grotto Heaven realm. There's nothing to be afraid of. Flatten the Heaven Baron sect and kill them all. The kings pointed at the Heaven Baron sect from afar and sped away in high spirits. Heaven Baron sect. Feng Cantian, who was cultivating, suddenly felt a throbbing in his heart, as if a disaster was about to descend. This was a sign of a sudden impulse. At his cultivation level, there must be a reason for such a sign. Feng Cantian stood up, feeling increasingly uneasy. He pushed open the door of his cave abode. At this moment, his heart skipped a beat and he looked up. In the galaxy far away, 33 figures with terrifying auras sped toward the Heaven Baron sect. In the blink of an eye they were in the sky. 33 kings. Feng Cantian's expression was solemn. Among the 33 kings, apart from some of the peerless kings, there were even 3 pinnacle kings from the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend realms. With 33 king tiers gathered together, what kind of terrifying pressure was this? Moreover, they didn't even bother to conceal their piercingly cold killing intent. The arrival of this group of kings above the Heaven Baron sect instantly caused a huge commotion in the sect. As soon as the 33 kings descended, they did not say a single word. They scattered across the sky and unleashed a series of spells that disappeared into the void. Immediately this space was locked down. Outsiders couldn't enter and the people inside couldn't leave. Seeing this action, Feng Cantian realized that this group of kings was here to kill them all. "It's you?" When Feng Cantian saw one of the kings, his eyes narrowed and killing intent surged in his heart. Prince Ensure. Back then, when he was plotted against by King Jin and King Tianxing, he had yet to meet King Ensure Wang. Later on, he was imprisoned in the underground of Juele City for hundreds of thousands of years, never seeing the light of day and never seeing King Ensure Wang. However, after he escaped, King Ensure Wang once appeared to hunt him down, but he was lucky enough to escape. Later on, from true immortal Zhangye and Feng Zi, he learned that his child Feng Yunzhou and his Dao partner Lu Xuansu were both killed. The culprit was King Ensure. At this moment, the cultivators of the Heaven Baron sect were alarmed and ran out one after another. Seeing the 33 figures in the air, the cultivators' faces turned pale and their hearts were filled with despair. They felt completely disheartened. The few kings who were originally guarding the Heaven Baron sect also felt a wave of regret. Tianlang, Mingzhen, Yan Beichen, Demonis Ji, Gu Tongyu, Qiu Siluo, Feng Zi, and the others came behind Feng Cantian. They knew that the Heaven Baron sect could not withstand the killing of the 33 kings, but they were not afraid at all. This was the Heaven Baron sect. They were gathered together like family and brothers. Even if they died, they would die together. Even Tianlang did not back down. He mumbled, "Since I've already died once, it doesn't matter. At least I'm free for a period of time." Feng Zi glared at King Ensure, who was in midair, and clenched her fists. It was this person who had killed her parents. "Is Sima not here?" Feng Cantian asked coldly. Sima was the surname of King Jin. King Ensure smiled gently and said, "Feng Cantian, you're not worthy to meet my father. I'm here this time round to send you and your poor child to meet in the netherworld. You should thank me." Fufufu. Feng Cantian's eyes were like lightning and his body flickered with lightning arcs. His aura rose continuously as he said slowly, "Today I'm going to kill you even if I have to give up my life." "Kill them all." King Ensure looked down at the densely packed figures of the Heaven Baron sect and waved his hand casually. It was as if they weren't killing living people but stepping on a group of ants. At the same time, outside the Heaven Baron continent, a ferry boat came out of the space tunnel. It was shrouded in a mysterious aura and was faintly discernible. On the ferry boat stood an unusually tall figure. He was covered in a black robe and even his head was covered by a black hood. His face could not be seen clearly. According to the map, this should be the place. The figure took out a map and compared it. Behind him stood a beautiful woman with a graceful figure. Strange. The woman looked in the direction of the Heaven Baron continent and frowned. "Why don't I see the Heaven Baron sect?" The tall figure in a black robe squinted his eyes and looked for a moment before laughing strangely. The space in front has been sealed by many kings. No one can see it." "Then what do we do?" the woman asked. The black-robed figure waved his hand. "I can completely ignore this kind of space seal. I'll go in and check it out first. You all have special identities, so wait here." The woman nodded. The black-robed figure moved and his tall and burly figure dove into the void ahead like a phantom, vanishing. That space was sealed by countless dermic arts. However, the black-robed figure seemed to be able to sense every single seal and dodged it with ease. He passed through the layers of seals and entered the sky above the Heaven Baron sect. The moment he passed through the void, he smelled an aura that made him extremely excited. The smell of blood. Everywhere he looked there were massacres, fresh blood, corpses and severed limbs. The black-robed figure felt as though all the pores on his body were opened. Chapter 29:10. Boom. Accompanied by a deafening sound, Feng Tsantian's grotto heaven was shattered and he fell to the ground heavily. The thunder spear fell far away as well and its light dimmed. Feng Kenten, you can't even touch the corner of my robes and you want to kill me? King Enshirwang looked down at Feng Kantian who was covered in injuries and was struggling to stand up with a mocking expression. In fact, he did not even attack personally. The poverty-fiend king alone had severely injured Feng Kantian with ease. Feng Kantian hadn't stood up yet when a shadow loomed over him. The poor devil king was right in front of him and stomped on his chest, forcing him down with a cruel smile on his face. How dare you claim to be the wrath of the heavens with that bit of combat strength of yours? The poverty-fiend king sneered. Initially, Ming Zhen, Yen Beichen and the others could still hold on with Feng Kantian at the front. But now that Feng Kantian was severely injured, they could not move at all under the suppression of the poverty-fiend king's spirit consciousness. In fact, their bodies were about to collapse under that terrifying suppression and crackling sounds could be heard from within their bodies. The difference was way too great. If the poverty-fiend king wanted to kill them, he did not even have to attack personally. A single spirit consciousness was enough to kill everyone. King Enshirwang pointed at Ming Zhen, Yen Beichen and the others and declared, "These are the 7 emotions fiend generals of Heaven Baron sect. They've been famous in recent years and are extremely mighty." Ah! The poverty-fiend king looked at Ming Zhen, Yen Beichen and the others who were struggling against his suppression and roared in laughter. 7 emotions fiend generals? So this is all you're capable of. In my eyes you're all ants. King Enshirwang was about to speak when his expression changed suddenly. In his eyes, a tall and burly figure appeared behind the poverty-fiend king unknowingly. He wore black robes and his appearance could not be seen clearly. He was not the one who found that person. Brother Poverty-Fiend. The king Enshirwang had just opened his mouth to warn the poverty-fiend king when he saw a shuddering scene. As though he sensed something, the poverty-fiend king turned around suddenly. However, the moment he turned around, he was swallowed by the black-robed man. His neck was bitten off and blood gushed out. The 7 emotions demonic general is an ant in your eyes? In my eyes you're just food. It's a little chewy and the meat is a little tight but it tastes pretty good. Crack. Crack. The black-robed man chewed with his big mouth, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. He was still mumbling something indistinctly. The poor demon king's primordial spirit didn't even have time to escape before it was chewed to pieces and died. A Peak King realm expert had actually had his head swallowed alive. Furthermore, none of the kings present had noticed when the black-robed man had appeared or how he had appeared behind the poor demon king. You, King Enshirwang's pupils contracted as he pointed at the back of the black-robed man. His voice was trembling. He had seen dead people before, but he had never seen such a way of dying. The poor demon king was already ferocious enough, but compared to this black-robed man, he was as cute as a little white rabbit. At this moment, the black-robed man took off the hood on his head, revealing a ferocious and terrifying face. His mouth was wide open and blood and brain matter were mixed in between his teeth. This black-robed man was the Yaksha king who had escaped from the Sind land of 9 hells with Yuluosha and the others. Under normal circumstances, with the speed of his immortal boat, he should have arrived at Tianhuang mainland long ago. However, on the way to Tianhuang mainland, experts from the celestial tribute world would often appear and search everywhere. To be safe, the Yaksha king could only choose to hide temporarily and avoid being searched by the celestial tribute world before continuing on his journey. As a result, he was delayed for a long time. Within the Heaven Baron sect, the group of kings who were in the midst of a massacre felt a chill for no reason. They subconsciously stopped what they were doing and turned around to look. Then the kings saw the Yaksha king's appearance and gasped subconsciously. Yaksha. The poor demon king had been swallowed alive by this Yaksha. Most of the Yakshas were locked up in the celestial tribute world. Of course, there were definitely some Yakshas or other demons in the 3,000 worlds. Due to their small numbers, the celestial tribute world couldn't be bothered to deal with them. For example, under the Shura temple of the Grand Taiwei mountain, there was a Shura. However, Yakshas who had cultivated to this level were too rare. Awesome. The Yaksha king grinned as he chewed on the poor demon king's skull. He looked excited and his eyes shone with a bloodthirsty light. King Enshirwang took a deep breath and tried his best to calm himself down. He said in a low voice, "My friend from the Yaksha race, this is a feud between us and the Tianhuang sect. I hope you won't interfere." Although the poor demon king was on their side, he was already dead. King Enshirwang didn't want to face this monster because of the death of the poor demon king, so he sounded a little weak. King Enshirwang said, "I am the crown prince of the great Jin celestial kingdom of the divine firmament immortal region. If you are willing to give me some face, I will definitely thank you in the future." The Yiksha king laughed strangely. "There's no need for that. You can thank me with your life." King Enshirwang clenched his fists and suppressed his anger. He forced a smile and said, "You must be joking." The Yiksha king grinned and licked his scarlet lips. He stared at King Enshirwang maliciously and asked, "Do you know who I am?" "I don't know." King Enshirwang hesitated. The Yiksha king said slowly, "I am the Fear King, one of the 7 emotions demon generals." As soon as he said that, King Enshirwang and the other kings looked at each other in shock. Fear King? There was another Fear King in the Tianhuang sect? King Enshirwang's mind was in a mess. The appearance of this Yiksha race had completely messed up his plan. It was different from the information he had. When did the Tianhuang sect have a Fear King? However, on second thought, there were indeed only 6 demon generals in the emotions of joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hate, and desire. In theory, there should be another Fear King. However, why hadn't this Fear King appeared before? Not only King Enshirwang but Feng Cantian, Ming Zhen, Yen Beichen, Demonist Ji, and the others from the Tianhuang sect were also a little confused. Puchi. At this moment, an ear-piercing sound came from the sky, and blood spurted out. The Yiksha king had suddenly disappeared and appeared beside an ordinary celestial king. He crushed the celestial king's head and threw the celestial king's primordial spirit into his mouth. The second king had died. The Yiksha king disappeared again under everyone's gaze. His movement technique was too fast. Like a ghost, it was impossible to see his movements with the naked eye. "Be careful. Over there. No, over here." A scream came to an abrupt end. Another heavenly king of the Buddhist sect died. His body was torn into pieces and fell from the sky. Boom. A king hurriedly held up his grotto heaven, but it was broken by the Yiksha king's body and smashed into a pile of meat paste. Even the kings present had never seen such a cruel killing method, let alone the earth immortals and sky immortals of the Tianhuang sect. This Yiksha didn't see them as kings who ruled over a region. He only saw them as food. King Enshirwang suddenly realized that the situation was not right. Originally they were the killers. Now they were the prey. Chapter 29:11. Everyone stay calm. Work together to hold up your grotto heavens and fight against this demon. King Enshirwang said loudly. Apart from a few kings, the rest were earth immortals, sky immortals, or true immortals. They posed no threat to them. The kings on King Enshirwang's side did not use their grotto heavens against these cultivators as there was no need to. This way, Yiksha king would take advantage of the situation and attack. Yiksha king used his ghostly body to weave in and out of the crowd. In the blink of an eye, he had killed 5 kings. Among them was a pinnacle king like the poor demon king. Yiksha king's killing and cruel methods had dyed the air red with the blood of the kings. The battlefield was in chaos. If this continued, the remaining kings would be killed by Yiksha king one by one if they could not gather together to fight against the enemy. Boom, boom, boom. The remaining 20 kings also realized this and started to hold up their grotto heavens. The blood in their bodies surged as they took out their grotto heaven spiritual treasures. More than 20 grotto heavens were released at the same time. Among them were 2 perfected grotto heavens and more than 10 large grotto heavens. This was indeed a force to be reckoned with. Under the pressure of such a powerful force, Yiksha king was forced to reveal himself. With his strength, he could destroy a small grotto heaven with his bare hands. However, he could not withstand a large grotto heaven or even a perfected grotto heaven with just his body and bloodline. Although the void Yikshas had powerful physical bodies and bloodlines, it wasn't their forte. They were called void Yikshas because they were good at controlling space. Yiksha king was not afraid of the large grotto heavens coming at him. Instead, his eyes shone with excitement. He formed a strange hand seal and shouted, "100 ghosts parade." Swoosh, swoosh. Yasha Kagura's body swayed slightly. Then, more than 100 phantoms emerged from his body and pounced on the 20 or so Yasha Kagura. Yiksha king disappeared on the spot. The most terrifying thing was that the ghosts looked exactly the same as Yiksha king. They were all ugly and ferocious. There was no difference at all. The kings were stunned and felt their scalps go numb. This is a clone technique? Among the kings present, some of them had also cultivated or heard of some cloning techniques. But who had ever seen over 100 clones appear at once? It should be an illusion. The Buddhist pinnacle king shouted, "Everyone don't panic. Let's find this devil's true body first." The kings hurriedly used all sorts of eye techniques in an attempt to see through Yasha fear monarch's movements, but how could they tell? Ghost parade was a secret technique that only the void yakshas could master. It was a combination of the most superior illusion and doppelganger techniques, which could deceive the eyes and ears of others. In the past, Wu Dao's main body had fought with the Yasha king of fear in hell. Wu Dao's original body was only able to see through the Yasha fear king's tracks after releasing his purple flame eyes. The purple flame eyes of Wu Dao's true body could refine thousands of skills and dissect secret arts. If there were kings from the heavenly eye race, they would be able to see through the ghost parade as well. However, the eye techniques of the kings present were far inferior to the purple flame eyes and polychoria. If they couldn't accurately determine the Yasha fear monarch's true body, another situation would occur. Originally, with over 20 kings working together and gathering the power of over 20 grotto heavens, even the Yasha fear monarch couldn't take them head-on. But now, over 100 ghosts were pouncing toward them. Who knew if the true body of the Yasha king of fear was among the phantoms that were charging at him? No one dared to take the risk. Thus, the kings could only retreat to their grotto heavens to protect themselves. This was also their instinct. As such, the 20-plus kings working together naturally didn't exist anymore. At this moment, all the kings were silently praying that the Yasha fear monarch's true body wasn't among the ghosts that were pouncing toward them. In truth, the moment this thought flashed through their minds, they had already lost this battle. When the ghosts approached, the Buddhist pinnacle king finally sensed danger and wanted to shout. However, just as he shouted 2 words, he was attacked by the Yasha fear monarch and was forced to interrupt. Rumble. The Yasha fear monarch stared at the Buddhist pinnacle immortal king and approached him. He propped up his grotto heaven and clashed with the heavenly king. With a loud bang, the heavenly king's grotto heaven shook and a few cracks appeared on it. The heavenly king roared and crazily activated his primordial spirit, trying his best to maintain the cracked grotto heaven. As long as he could hold on for a while longer, the other kings would swarm him and he would have a chance to live. He believed that he could still hold on. Only a few cracks appeared on his grotto heaven. It hadn't reached the point of collapse yet. However, he didn't know that the ghost parade wasn't just a fusion of clones and illusions. Although each ghost had no combat power, if a cultivator chose to ignore them and let them possess him, they would definitely be severely injured. Even back then, Wu Dao's original body had to release her blood and chi to burn and refine these ghost shadows. A few ghost shadows followed the cracks in the heavenly king's grotto heaven and quietly invaded, possessing his body and seeping into his bloodline through his pores. The peak heavenly king suddenly shivered. Every ghost shadow was condensed from pure Yin ghost chi. Once it invaded the bloodline, it would definitely cause great damage to the cultivator's blood and chi. This peak heavenly king felt that his bloodline was about to stop circulating. Waves of coldness came from his body as he trembled uncontrollably. He still didn't know that in the eyes of others, his appearance was even more terrifying. Under the gazes of the various kings, he only exchanged a single blow with the Yasha fear monarch. Then his face turned pale, his lips turned purple, his eyes were bloodshot, and his entire body was filled with Yin chi, as if he had been possessed by a malicious spirit. A ghost shadow appeared in the sea of consciousness of this peak king. He could no longer hold on, and his grotto heaven instantly collapsed. The Yasha fear monarch's expression was sinister as he grinned. He stepped forward and forcefully tore the body of this peak heavenly king into 2, causing blood to spurt out. The Yasha fear monarch stood below, allowing the blood to wantonly splash onto his body, mixing with countless internal organs and flesh. However, he didn't feel the slightest bit of discomfort. Instead, he became more and more excited, and the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. The various kings watched with trepidation, almost vomiting on the spot. An uncontrollable fear burst out from the depths of the king's hearts. Run! The king's hearts trembled and they no longer dared to stay here. They had seen existences that were far stronger than the Yasha fear monarch, but even if they were facing an imperial emperor expert, they were still unwilling to face this monster. Chapter 29:12. This was the nature of the Yaksha race. They were ugly, cruel, and bloodthirsty. Now that they were in the middle world, there were no restrictions and they had nothing to fear. Even the cultivators of the Heaven Baron sect were stunned by the scene before them, let alone King Enshirwang and the others who were targeted by the Yaksha king of fear. They could not come to their senses for a while. Feng Cantian and the others looked at each other. They were also shocked. From the looks of it, this Yiksha should be on their side. It was indeed worthy of the title of King of Fear. However, such a terrifying monster had suddenly appeared and started killing in all directions. Everyone was still a little confused. Feng Cantian muttered, "It should be the helper patriarch found." Unless it was in private, most of the time Feng Cantian and the others would address the martial Dao true body as sect master to hide the secret of Su Zimo's two true bodies. Master? Tian Lang smacked his lips and shook his head. Master has just entered the grotto heaven for more than 2,000 years. Although his battle strength is abnormal, I'm afraid he can't defeat this monster. Everyone discussed for a while but still had no clue. On the battlefield, King Yin and the others were scared out of their wits by the Yiksha Fear King's methods. They did not dare to stay any longer and scattered. The 20 or so monarchs hurriedly unleashed spell seals to disperse the power that had sealed the surrounding space. Boom, boom, boom. Although there were still a few remaining, they were destroyed by the attacks of the kings. With just this short delay, another 2 kings were torn in half by Yiksha Fear Wang Xing, their bodies vanishing into thin air. Feng Cantian stared at King Yin and gritted his teeth. His body trembled slightly and he was unwilling to accept this. He had just been severely injured by the poor demon king. His grotto heaven was shattered, his chest caved in, and his organs were all shattered. Now he could barely stand with the help of the thunder spear, let alone chase after a peerless immortal king. Senior Feng. As if she could see Feng Tsantian's unwillingness, Demoness Ji comforted him gently. As long as we survive this, we will definitely have a chance to kill our way to the Great Jin Immortal Empire and take revenge. I will definitely go to the Great Jin Immortal Empire, Feng Cantian said slowly. But it's a pity that King Yin escaped this time. We couldn't take revenge for Yunzhou and Xuansu. On the battlefield, the slaughter continued. However, there was only one Yasha King of Fear. Although Enshi Wang and the others were defeated, Yasha Fearing King couldn't keep all 20 of them here. Yasha Fearing King couldn't keep all 20 of them here. King Enshi Wang had a high chance of escaping. In the starry sky outside the heaven realm, there was a classic ferry boat floating. It was carrying the Rakshasa who had escaped from the sinful land of Jianghu. Many Rakshasa clansmen were worried that their whereabouts would be exposed, so they had been hiding in the immortal boats. At this moment, they were watching the battle above the Heaven Baron sect through the cracks of the windows of the immortal boats. Although the Yasha Taboo King was killing in all directions, the group of kings were fleeing in all directions. The Yasha Taboo King couldn't take care of them all. Should we go down and help? A Rakshasa race monarch asked softly as he approached Yu Luosha. After leaving the 9th Hell Sinful Land, Wu Dao's true body had ordered that all Rakshasas on the ferry boat had to listen to Yu Luosha's orders, regardless of their cultivation base. The Rakshasa clansmen were full of respect and gratitude towards Wu Dao's true body. After all, Wu Dao's true body came from the same place as their ancestor, Sunu Rakshasa, and saved them from the sinful land of Jianghu. Therefore, seeing that the Heaven Baron sect was in trouble, the Rakshasa clansmen wanted to help. Yu Luosha was a little hesitant. Xiao Yu, a Rakshasa race monarch said, I know you're worried. If we expose our whereabouts, not only will our lives be in danger, but we'll also implicate our race and bring trouble to Lord Araki Takashi. However, the women of the Rakshasa race look no different from humans. As long as we don't release the secret techniques of the Rakshasa race and don't go up to eat people, no one will be able to tell. That's good too. Yu Luosha nodded and said, in that case I'll have to trouble all of you to make those kings stay. After a pause, Yu Luosha couldn't help but remind them, don't eat people, try to control yourself. All right. No problem. Hearing that, the women of the Rakshasa race monarchs were all energized and their eyes lit up. There were hundreds of millions of Rakshasa clansmen on the ferry boat and hundreds of Rakshasa race monarchs. There were more than 100 women among the monarchs. The Rakshasa clansmen had been trapped in the sinful land of Jianghu for countless years and were often beaten and bullied by the celestial worship world. They couldn't resist and had long been suffocated. Now that they had the chance to help, they were even more excited than the Yiksha King of Fear. The men among the hundreds of Rakshasa race monarchs were full of resentment and envy. They hated that they were born as men. On the battlefield, under the Yiksha King of Fear's massacre, only 20 of the 33 kings were left in the blink of an eye. However, the remaining kings had already scattered and distanced themselves from the Yiksha King of Fear. As long as they were far away from the battlefield, they could break through the void and enter the space tunnel to escape. At that moment, a king looked around and suddenly saw an extraordinary classical ferry boat floating in the starry sky not far away. Go there. The king immediately changed direction and sped toward the ferry boat. Just as he got close, more than 100 beautiful women with graceful figures suddenly rushed out of the ferry boat and pounced toward him. A delicate fragrance wafted toward him. The king was stunned and a little confused. Any one of those women was a rare beauty. He could not believe that more than 100 of them were rushing toward him as if they were throwing themselves at him. Moreover, the expressions of those women were a little strange. Excited. Even their eyes were glowing. What was going on? Was it a blessing in disguise? Or was it a blessing in disguise? Fellow Taoists, slow down. Don't push. The demon king had just opened his mouth when the group of Rakshasa women swarmed past him. Blood mist filled the air as the king was instantly torn to pieces. More than 100 Rakshasa clansmen attacked, and the king died in a worse way than the others. Only a pile of minced meat was left in the starry sky. Even his human form could not be seen. More than 100 Rakshasa kings turned into streaks of light and pounced on the fleeing kings. The remaining kings were already scared out of their wits by the Yaksha king of fear and were in despair. Now that they were targeted by more than 100 Rakshasa kings, they were truly at their wits' end. There were only a dozen kings left on King An's side. Against more than 100 Rakshasas, about 10 Rakshasas surrounded one king on average. There were too many monks and too little meat. Moreover, the Rakshasa race was best at movement techniques and speed. No matter how fast the kings were, they could not escape from the Rakshasa race's pursuit. King An, you tricked me. A king roared in grief and anger before he died. They had come this time because King An had said that the Tianhuang sect was only a weak heaven-level force and there was nothing to be afraid of. They only had a few ordinary kings. Who would have thought that there would be a monster with terrifying combat power that would eat people everywhere? More than 100 kings came out and blocked their way. How could this be called a weak heaven-level force? With so many kings, they could kill their way to the divine firmament immortal realm and even destroy the great Jin immortal kingdom. Chapter 29:13. Heaven Baron Sect. The kings who were forced to stay behind were dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold. Their emotions were fluctuating. When the 33 kings arrived, they felt hopeless and regretted not leaving earlier. Then the appearance of the Yaksha king gave them a glimmer of hope. Now, more than 100 terrifying kings appeared out of nowhere. They were completely dumbfounded. So, this was the foundation of Heaven Baron Sect? Feng Cantian, Demonish Ji, and the others were also stunned. The appearance of the Yaksha king was somewhat understandable. After all, he called himself the fear of 7 emotions and could be linked to Heaven Baron Sect. Where did the 100 or so kings in the starry sky come from? At this moment, Demonish Ji's eyes flickered and her heart skipped a beat. What's wrong? Feng Cantian noticed that Demonish Ji's expression was strange and asked. Demonish Ji looked around and said with her divine consciousness, "These kings are not from the human race. They are from the Rakshasa race." She had obtained the inheritance of the 9 Abyss Emperor. The 9 Abyss Emperor was the plain Rakshasa. Although these Rakshasa women looked no different from humans, Demonish Ji could still see through their origins at a glance. Rakshasa race? Feng Cantian frowned slightly. Why would so many kings from the Rakshasa race help Heaven Baron Sect? In a short while, only a few of the 33 kings that King An had brought were left. King An was also targeted by the Yaksha king. King An was only a peerless immortal king and was no match for the Yaksha king. King An's grotto heaven collapsed in just one exchange. In the blink of an eye, he was subdued by the Yaksha king and held in his huge hand like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Wait! Feng Cantian seemed to have thought of something and suddenly yelled. However, he was still a little too slow. In the galaxy, the Yaksha king opened his bloody mouth and bit a huge hole in King An's head. He was eating heartily. King An Shirwang's primordial spirit was swallowed into his stomach, his body and Tao vanishing. Hearing Feng Cantian's voice, Yasha Fear King stopped and looked at Feng Cantian. He handed the Ungshi king over and chewed while asking in a muffled voice, "What, do you want to try it too?" Feng Cantian quickly shook his head. He didn't want to let An World King live. He just wanted Feng Zi to kill An World King herself to avenge the child's parents. After Feng Zi came to the Heaven Baron Sect, although she reunited with Feng Cantian and his grandson, she was still very quiet and rarely showed any emotions. Feng Cantian knew that Feng Zi had suffered from the death of her parents when she was young, which was why she became like this. Therefore, he wanted to use this opportunity to open Feng Zi's heart. "Fellow Taoist, can you hand him over to me?" Feng Cantian cupped his hands and asked. "If you want it, then take it." The Yasha king of fear licked his lips and reminded, However, the taste of this person's flesh is ordinary. It's not as good as the Cheong Chi from before. Blah. The Ungshi monarch's corpse was casually thrown in front of Feng Tian. Feng Zi looked at the dead and world king who had died a horrible death. His face was filled with terror and his eyes were wide open. The emotions that she had suppressed for many years were finally released. Tears fell like rain. She had waited for this day for far too long. On the other side, the battle had already ended. Including the in-world king, there were a total of 33 kings. All of them were dead without a single survivor. This group of Rakshasa even carefully cleaned up the battlefield and erased all possible traces before coming to the Heaven Wasteland sect. He placed the spoils of war in front of Feng Tian and the others. Feng Tian was even more confused and waved his hand. Fellow Taoists, thank you for your help in the calamity that befell Heaven Baron sect this time round. These treasures should belong to all of you. The Rakshasa race beings exchanged glances and shook their heads, placing the spoils of war before Feng Tian and the others. This sect was created by Lord Araki Takashi and they did not dare to take advantage of it. At this moment, another woman slowly descended in front of everyone. When Ming Zhen, Yen Beichen and Demonist Ji saw her, their expressions changed. Soon they recalled her identity and were shocked. This woman was also from Tianhuang mainland. She was Yu Luosha from the same generation as them. It's you? Demonist Ji could not help but ask. Yu Luosha nodded and smiled at Demonist Ji and the others, greeting them. At the same time, she gestured for the 100-odd Rakshasas beside her to release a secret skill to shield the surroundings and prevent others from eavesdropping. You guys know each other? Feng Tian asked. Although he was from Tianhuang mainland as well, he ascended early and did not know Yu Luosha. Demonist Ji nodded and explained Yu Luosha's background roughly. How did Sister Yu find us? Demonist Ji asked curiously, what's up with these Rakshasa experts? It's Master's orders. When Yu Luosha saw everyone's confused expressions, she added, Master is Araki Takashi. Thereafter, Yu Luosha explained the incident at the 9 Underworld Sin ground briefly and handed the communication Dao talisman that Wu Dao's true body gave her. It was the voice of Wu Dao's true body and could not be faked. Heaven Tribute World, Feng Tian murmured softly. Before he was imprisoned by the Jin Emperor, he had indeed heard of this place. However, he did not have the time to visit it. When she heard that the Rakshasa race had been imprisoned in the 9 Underworld Sin ground for countless years, Demonist Ji already felt sympathy for them. Even without the instructions of Wu Dao's true body, she should have settled the descendants of the 9 Underworld's Emperor after obtaining the inheritance of the 9 Underworld's Emperor. Demonist Ji said, Everyone don't worry. The inheritance ground is located at the edge of the middle world. It's a desolate starry sky and is extremely hidden. Without special methods it's difficult to detect it. Thank you, Miss Ji. Yu Luosha bowed in gratitude. On the other side, the Yaksha King of Fear patrolled the surroundings and asked Feng Tian, You're the leader here? Yes. Feng Tian nodded. The Yaksha King of Fear pursed his lips. Your cultivation is too weak and your combat strength is lacking as well. You've only managed to establish a small territory. The Yaksha King of Fear did not hide the contempt in his heart. Feng Tian and the others frowned slightly when they heard that. Although everyone from Tianhuang sect was conflicted, the other party had just saved them and they naturally could not refute him. Which of the 7 emotions demon generals are you? The Yaksha King of Fear asked again. The fury of the 7 emotions. Feng Tian answered. All right. The Yaksha King of Fear stretched out his ugly claws and patted Feng Tian's shoulder. He said casually, From today onwards, this place is under my control. Listen to me. From today onwards, the 7 emotions demon generals will follow me, the King of Fear. Do you understand? As he spoke, the Yaksha King of Fear stared at Feng Tian and the others with a ferocious and threatening look. He was naturally ferocious and violent. Apart from Wu Dao's true body, no one else could suppress him. The error-free chapters of Eternal Saint King will continue to be updated in the bar. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please bookmark and recommend the bar. If you like Eternal Saint King, please bookmark. Eternal Saint King's bar updates the fastest. Chapter 29:14. Of course, the Yaksha King of Fear did not dare to betray Wu Dao's true body. However, in his opinion, he should be ranked first among the 7 emotions demonic generals. Before Feng Tian could say anything, Yu Luosha suddenly snorted and said in an unfriendly tone, Master asked you to help the Heaven Baron sect. But he didn't ask you to lead the Heaven Baron sect. You'd better not act on your own. Also, these people are the Lord's old friends. You're just a servant. Know your place. The Yaksha king of fear's face darkened when he heard this. He glared at Yu Luosha and gritted his teeth. What? Little girl, you want to order me around? Before the Yaksha king of fear could finish his words, he stopped abruptly. His expression changed and fear flashed across his eyes. You're courting death. A voice suddenly sounded in the Yaksha king of fear's mind. This voice belonged to Wu Dao's true body. Master, I didn't betray you. The Yaksha king of fear was so frightened that he knelt on the ground and explained in a trembling voice, I only want to help you strengthen the Heaven Baron sect. I have no other intentions. Back in the ghost world, the Yaksha king of fear had offered up a wisp of his soul and swore a Dao oath that he would never betray Master. The Yaksha king of fear did not have any rebellious thoughts. He only wanted to suppress Feng Cantian and the others. He did not expect Wu Dao's true body to have such means. He was actually able to detect everything that was happening on his side. In fact, when the Yaksha king of fear offered up his soul, Wu Dao's true body had used this soul to leave a backup plan. Feng Cantian and the others were shocked by the Yaksha king of fear's sudden action. The ferocious monster suddenly knelt on the ground as if he was suffering from great fear and trembled. You're only the weakest of the 7 emotions demonic generals. Listen to the orders of the heaven's wrath immortal king and cannot disobey. The voice of Wu Dao's true body sounded again. Although his tone was calm, it was filled with unquestionable power. Furthermore, the Yaksha king of fear felt a trace of danger behind the voice of Wu Dao's true body. He even suspected that if he said another word, Wu Dao's true body would kill him without hesitation. Understood. Yasha king of fear answered honestly. The short conversation between the two was only completed in Yasha's mind. No one else knew what had happened. However, when he stood up again, his murderous aura disappeared a lot. He respectfully bowed towards Feng Canton and said, Heavenly Wrath Immortal Monarch, please tell me what you need. Demoness Ji could not help but chuckle and tease, Hey, aren't you a little too different? The Yaksha Fear King did not dare to say anything in the face of Demoness Ji's mockery. Instead, it gave Demoness Ji a friendly smile. Wu Dao's true body said that he was ranked last among the 7 emotions demonic generals. In the future, when he saw the other 6, he would have to restrain himself. That's not necessarily the case. Feng Cantian waved his hand and didn't make things difficult for the Fear Yaksha King. Everyone could roughly guess that the transformation of the Yasha Fear King had something to do with Wu Dao's original body. Master is already so strong? Sky Wolf rolled his eyes. How could he let go of such a rare opportunity to show off? Sky Wolf came to the Fear King's side and consoled him, Ugly, don't be discouraged. Cheer up. Let's get to know each other. I've been with Master for a long time. You can call me Brother Wolf from now on. Where did this wild wolf come from? The Fear King gritted his teeth in hatred. If it was before, he would have bitten off Sky Wolf's neck in one bite. But now, the Fear King gritted his teeth and his facial muscles twitched. He squeezed out 3 words, Hello, Brother Wolf. Feng Cantian pondered for a while and suddenly said, Fear King, there's indeed something I need your help with. Feng Cantian wanted the Fear King to send Prince N's head to the Great Jin Immortal Empire and let the Great Jin Immortal Empire feel the pain of losing a son. What's wrong with that? No problem. Fear Yaksha King immediately agreed. Feng Cantian said, This trip is a little dangerous. Although the Great Jin Immortal Empire doesn't have an emperor, it's heavily guarded. Can I just eat people? The Fear King asked. Feng Cantian, after a moment of silence, he coughed lightly and said, It's better to control yourself. Just throw Prince An's head over and come back directly to avoid any unnecessary trouble. It wasn't that Feng Cantian didn't think of killing his way to the Great Jin Immortal Empire now. But that wasn't realistic. The Rakshasa race in the 9th Underworld Sin Ground had a special background. If he really brought them to the Great Jin Immortal Empire, it would be difficult to hide their identities. Without the help of the Rakshasa race, even with the Fear King, they might not be able to fight against the entire Great Jin Immortal Empire. Moreover, Feng Cantian wanted to kill the Great Jin Immortal Empire personally to end this grudge. Great Jin Immortal Empire. Great Jin Immortal Empire. Great Jin Immortal Empire, who was resting on the bed, suddenly woke up. He opened his eyes and sat up. While he was resting with his eyes closed, his heart suddenly throbbed for no reason. What happened? Could it be? The Great Jin Immortal Empire thought of a possibility and couldn't sit still anymore. He floated down from the bed and pushed the door open. The moment the door was pushed open, the Great Jin Immortal Empire's face changed drastically. Right at the door of the Great Jin Immortal Empire's bedroom, there was a head with a piece of it bitten off. It was dripping with blood. From the looks of it, it was his most favored son, Prince In. At the same time, the void not far away cracked open, and the Heavenly Punishment King appeared. Something happened. Before he completely walked out, the Heavenly Punishment King already said, "The Crown Prince's life soul jade slip shattered. Those 30 kings entered the demon domain and there's no news of them. They're most likely dead." When he arrived, the Heavenly Punishment King also saw Prince An's head. He couldn't help but shudder and his pupils constricted. The death of Prince An was a huge blow to the Great Jin Immortal Empire. What made the two of them even more shocked was that someone actually snuck into the Great Jin Immortal Empire's palace and placed this head at the door of the Great Jin Immortal Empire's bedroom without anyone noticing. The Great Jin Immortal Empire was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. If it weren't for the fact that his bedroom was surrounded by formations and restrictions, he even suspected that this head wouldn't have appeared next to his pillow. Who did it? Who has this ability? There's such an expert in the Heaven Baron sect? The Great Jin Immortal Empire's heart was filled with shock and fear. It was the first time he felt such fear from the unknown. He wanted to avenge Prince An, but he didn't dare to go to the Heaven Baron sect. He was afraid that he would end up like the 30-odd King Realm experts and die without a sound. The Heavenly Punishment King also fell silent. To be able to kill all 30 kings, the Heaven Baron sect's strength was simply unfathomable. "What should we do?" asked the Heavenly Punishment King. Now it was no longer a problem of how to deal with the Heaven Baron sect. It was a problem of when Feng Cantian would make a comeback and attack the Great Jin Immortal Empire. The Great Jin Immortal Empire clenched his fists slightly and said in a low voice, "I'll go to the Divine Firmament Palace." If Feng Cantian really dares to attack, the Divine Firmament Palace can't just sit by and do nothing. After all, we were only able to do that with the tacit consent of the Divine Firmament Emperor back then. The Heavenly Punishment King nodded and said, "That's the only way." On the other side, the Yuxia King of Fear had already returned to the Heaven Baron sect and boarded the immortal boat again. Under the guidance of Demonist Ji, it carried many Rakshasas and headed toward the mysterious place of the 9 Netherworld Emperor. End of this chapter. Chapter 29:15. After several days of flying, Su Zimo and the others finally returned to Sword World on the immortal boat. Only when they arrived at Sword World did they heave a sigh of relief. In fact, the news of the 2 battles on the Evil Demon battlefield and outside the Celestial Tribute World had already reached Sword World much faster than them. The kings of more than 20 worlds led by the 6 superworlds wanted to kill Suju. The emperors of Sword World were furious. Just as the emperors were about to head to the Celestial Tribute World, a second piece of news came. Suju used an escape technique and escaped from the battlefield alone. The Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Puppet Monarch, and dozens of other kings chased after her, but they were all wiped out. This news shocked all the Sword Realm Imperial Emperors. Dozens of kings were killed and there were many famous peak kings among them. They didn't even have the chance to escape. The attacker was probably an emperor. But other than the people of Sword World, who would save Suju? Moreover, killing dozens of kings in one battle, including many kings from super worlds, showed that this person didn't put the 6 superworlds in his eyes. In all fairness, even if the emperors of Sword World took revenge, they would at most kill 1 or 2 kings from the 6 superworlds. After all, Suju was only a true spirit. Using the blood of a king was already the limit. If the Sword World really went to war for a true spirit and started a massacre without restraint, the 6 super great worlds would definitely join forces and start a war between realms. Sword World also had to consider the consequences and couldn't take revenge. But now dozens of kings were dead. Although there had been many battles in the 3,000 worlds in recent years, it had been a long time since so many kings died in a battle. After hearing this news, the emperors of Sword World discussed and changed their minds. Originally they wanted to take revenge. But now that the 6 superworlds had suffered such a huge loss, there was no need for them to take action and provoke the 6 superworlds. Most importantly, this was a loss they couldn't admit. The 6 superworlds were in the wrong first. Even if they were unwilling, they couldn't use this reason to take revenge on Sword World. Moreover, they didn't know who the attacker was. There were many rumors outside. Some said it was a passerby emperors, some said it was the emperors of Sword World. Of course, the Sword Realm would not admit it. Some even suspected that everything was a trap set up by Sword World Suju. Step by step, she lured the Cold Eye Monarch and the others to their deaths. Of course, the most common explanation was still coincidence. It was all because of that Xiaoyin from the Heavenly Eye clan. As soon as Lu Yun and the others steered the boat into the cosmos of the Sword World, the old man with the iron crown came out to greet them. It was obvious that he'd been waiting for quite some time. The rest of the disciples, return to your respective sword peaks. The 9 peak lords follow me. After the old man finished speaking, he left first. Lu Yun dismissed the boat and motioned for Yun Ting, Kitsune, and the others to return to Sword Peak. The 9 peak lords then followed the old man to the Palace of Myriad Swords. In addition to the old man with the iron crown, the 9 peak leaders were also curious about Qin Nan's identity. Within the Myriad Swords Palace, there was also a fat old man and a skinny old man. Together with the old man with the iron crown, the 3 of them were the absolute masters of the sword world. Come and sit. The rotund old man had a friendly expression as he waved to the 9 of them with a smile. On the table not far away, fragrant immortal tea had already been set up. We've heard about what happened in the celestial bestowment world, the skinny old man said. However, I'd like you to tell us the details. The group recounted everything that had happened in the Fiend battlefield, the great battle of kings outside the celestial bestowment world, and the death of dozens of kings in the cosmos. The fat and skinny old men sighed. In fact, the battle in the evil demon battlefield could already be said to be unprecedented and unparalleled. The death of dozens of kings was an even greater shock to everyone. The fat old man said, no matter what, Su Zhu's name has truly shaken the 3,000 worlds. The skinny old man nodded as well and looked at Su Zimo with eyes filled with admiration. Squeezing out a smile on his stern face, he said, you've comprehended 7 supreme mystic powers. Well done, you're far better than me back then. The fat old man hurried to the skinny old man's side and clicked his tongue in wonder. You're smiling? The skinny old man immediately retracted his smile and returned to normal. He said coldly, I'm not smiling. Ah. The fat old man pointed at the skinny old man and laughed loudly. You've been pulling a long face all this time. How many years has it been since you last smiled? TSK, what a strange day. The fat and skinny old men were naturally overjoyed to see everyone from the sword world return unscathed. The old man with the iron crown suddenly said, the message talisman I sent you has traces of my Tao. Who could have stopped it? Moreover, I was worried earlier and investigated the celestial bestowment world, but I didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Did this person not only intercept the message talisman, but also conceal it from the heavenly mysteries? The old man with the iron crown looked at Su Zimo as he spoke. Su Zimo thought for a moment and didn't hide anything. The one who did it was Patriarch Chengkuan of the Cosmos Academy. It's him. Killing intent flashed through the eyes of the old man with the iron crown. Compared to the 6 super domains, the person who intercepted the message talisman and concealed it from the heavenly mysteries was even more vicious. If not for this person, even if the kings of the 6 super domains joined forces, the old man with the iron crown would have been able to arrive in time to intimidate the kings and escort Su Zimo and the others back. The Patriarch of the Academy was the reason why this battle broke out. The Patriarch of the Academy had not only schemed against Su Zimo, he had also schemed against the old man with the iron crown and kept him in the dark. How audacious. The old man with the iron crown's voice was cold and filled with killing intent. He had long heard of the methods of the Patriarch of the Academy. The old man with the iron crown said in a deep voice, in that case, the Patriarch of the Academy should have already entered the martial emperor realm? Su Zimo nodded. The reason why he schemed this time round was for the rank 12 creation Qinglian. Of course, I was scheming against him as well. Unfortunately, he still managed to escape. The old man with the iron crown and the fat and thin old men raised their brows when they heard that. A true spirit at the Kongming realm wanted to scheme against an emperor. Furthermore, judging from how nonchalant Su Zimo sounded, it seemed as though he had almost suppressed the Patriarch of the Academy. The 8 peak masters were stunned when they heard that. They only knew that dozens of kings had died, but they did not know that an emperor had appeared in between. Seems like there's another expert protecting him. That's not a bad thing. The 3 of them exchanged glances and did not continue asking. The Patriarch of the Academy, the old man with the iron crown, narrowed his eyes and murmured softly. There's something I'd like to ask the 3 of you. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo asked probingly, Seniors, do you know the origins of the sword cultivators in the evil demon battlefield? End of chapter. Chapter 29:16. The three elders lowered their eyes and fell silent when they heard the question. The fat old man also stopped smiling and fell silent. The atmosphere in the hall became somewhat oppressive. After a while, Lu Yun couldn't help but ask. Brother Su once asked one of the sword cultivators inside. His surname is Luo. Is that a coincidence? The three old men remained silent. Su Zimo and the others had an answer when they saw this reaction. However, they still didn't want to believe it. He didn't seem to want to give up. Sword masters, is the sword cultivator inside really related to Great Emperor Luo Tian? The old man with the iron crown stood up and tilted his head back with a smile. There was a trace of helplessness, bitterness, sadness, and desolation in his smile. The fat and thin elders also had complicated expressions. This matter is taboo in the world of sword. Only great emperors are allowed to know. The old man with the iron crown said faintly, "Since you've asked, I'll tell you. The sword cultivators in the fiendish battlefield are indeed descendants of great Emperor Luo Tian." The old man continued, "It's said that he was bewitched by evil demons and became enemies with all races. He committed a heinous crime and was ultimately executed by the celestial bestowment world. His descendants were imprisoned in the sinful land of the sword as sinful spirits. Generations of them had to atone for their ancestors' sins. That's why the world of sword completely declined after the All-Heaven epoch. After an epoch of recuperation, it gradually rose again. Was there such a thing? This was too much of an impact on the Eight Peak Masters. Even the concept of good and evil that they had built up over the years was shaken. The Eight Peak Masters frowned and clenched their fists. They couldn't accept this for the time being. How can this be? Yulan was a little dazed. How could Great Emperor Luo Tian commit such a crime and ally himself with evil demons? Every sword cultivator viewed Great Emperor Luo Tian as their pride. Now, even the Eight Peak leaders found it hard to accept the truth after hearing the secret. Lu Yun said, "After the All-Heaven era, the sword world suffered a calamity that must have originated from this." The old man with the iron crown nodded and said, "It is said that the great emperor of the All-Heaven still retained a trace of rationality and did not implicate the sword world. He only took away his clan members." Lu Yun asked, "Why didn't you tell us about this earlier and tell the others in the sword world?" The old man fell silent again. "I'm guessing that this is just one of the rumors." Su Zimo suddenly spoke. He looked at the old man and asked in a deep voice, "Senior, you should know of other rumors, right?" The old man with the iron crown was expressionless as he asked, "What rumors do you know?" "I don't know." Su Zimo shook his head. He really did not know much about the great emperor of all heaven. However, Su Zimo changed the topic and said, "However, the rumor that you mentioned just now is really full of loopholes and can't stand up to scrutiny. Senior All Heaven has already cultivated to the peak of a medium-class world and become a great emperor. I really can't think of any evil demon that could bewitch a great emperor who founded an era. If Senior All Heaven was so easily bewitched by evil demons, it would have been difficult for him to become a great emperor with his Tao heart. This statement is self-contradictory to begin with." The fat and skinny old men looked at Su Zimo deeply with complicated gazes. The old man with the iron crown didn't explain or refute. He only asked, "Is there anything else?" Su Zimo continued, "If Senior All Heaven wasn't bewitched by evil demons and has already become a great emperor, why would he be an enemy of all races? This rumor lacks a convincing reason. Not to mention, who among the myriad races can defeat him? This rumor has intentionally or unintentionally obscured an existence. He could be a single person or a faction, but one thing is certain. This existence's strength is enough to oppose or even suppress a great emperor who founded an era." Hearing this, the Eight Peak Masters were shocked and subconsciously looked at the three Sword Realm Lords. The three Peak Masters remained silent and didn't refute. This attitude could already prove many things. How is that possible? Yulan still couldn't understand and asked, "A great emperor is one and only respected in the universe. He is an invincible existence. Since ancient times, only one great emperor can be born in every era. Who can suppress a great emperor?" "Of course." Su Zimo said, "A great emperor is one and only in a medium-class world within the 3,000 worlds. What about outside the 3,000 worlds?" "Outside the 3,000 worlds?" The Eight Peak Masters were stunned. The medium-class world was too big and boundless. With their cultivation realm, it would be difficult for them to step into half of the medium-class world in their lifetime, let alone go outside the 3,000 worlds. Su Zimo had been to the Netherworld, and Wu Dao's original body had been to Hell and the Ghost World. He was certain that outside the medium-class world, There were some special worlds that existed side by side with the medium-class world. In these worlds, great emperors could also be born. For example, there was currently a great emperor in the ghost world, the Nirvana Ghost Mother. Actually, Su Zimo had some guesses after he escaped from the 9 underworld sin ground. If the Nirvana Ghost Mother was a great emperor, a drop of her blood could break the shackles of the Hadal sin grounds. Why would she need his help? Why didn't she come to the medium-class world and destroy the 10 great sin grounds? No great emperor had been born in the medium-class world in this era. In that case, what was the Nirvana Ghost Mother afraid of? The Celestial Bestowment World. Lu Yun hesitated. Is it the Celestial Bestowment World? Su Zimo shook his head. The Celestial Bestowment World is still in the medium-class world. It hasn't reached the level where it can stand side by side with the medium-class world. Could we have been wrong from the start? Something occurred to him and he murmured, Celestial Bestowment, Celestial Bestowment. The heaven they worship, and worship may not refer to the heavenly Tao or the mandate of heaven, but a person or perhaps a faction. The old man with the iron crown sighed heavily. The old man with the iron crown looked at Su Zimo and finally nodded. You're right. Everything about the great emperor of all heaven is indeed just a rumor. Moreover, it's the most common rumor in the 3,000 worlds that came from the celestial bestowment world. But in the world of sword, there's another rumor passed down by word of mouth between each generation of sword masters. The expressions of the 8 peak masters froze as they listened attentively. Ironhead you. The thin old man frowned and wanted to stop the old man. The old man waved a hand. They've already guessed some things. Even if we don't say anything, they'll still be conflicted. If we keep probing, it might lead to disaster. After a short pause, the old man continued slowly, You guessed right just now. There is indeed an unimaginable colossus behind the celestial bestowment world. We don't know what this faction is called. All records of it have been erased and no one is allowed to mention it. Even the previous sword masters didn't know, or perhaps they didn't dare mention it for fear of bringing disaster to the world of sword. Chapter 29:17. Su Zimo recalled the young man that Wu Dao's primary body had killed in the Hadal sinful lands. Cultivators of the celestial bestowment world had to be respectful before this young man. And this person had claimed to be from the celestial court. Celestial bestowment, the celestial court. The behemoth behind the celestial bestowment world was very likely the celestial court. The old man with the iron crown said, The previous sword master told me that although the great emperor of all heaven fought side by side with the demons, he wasn't bewitched. He only fought for a common goal, to fight against the behemoth behind the celestial realm. The 8 peak lords opened their mouths wanting to say something, but no words came out. This completely overturned their understanding of the world, making it difficult for them to digest. After a long pause, Lu Yun said, In other words, everything we once knew was a lie from the celestial bestowment world? The evil demons and sinful spirits of the 10 sinful lands didn't commit any sins at all, but only because they lost the war? Su Zimo suddenly recalled the words of the plain-clothed swordsman Luo Jun in the fiendish battlefield. It was true that evil couldn't triumph over good. If evil triumphed over good, it would no longer be evil. Yulan said, In that case, Great Emperor All Heaven wasn't the only one who rebelled. Great emperors from other eras did as well. That's right. The old man nodded and said, For example, the Dozhan Sin land was formed when the Dozhan Emperor was defeated and killed, and many blood apes were imprisoned. The Hadal sinful lands, the Star sinful lands, and the Empyrean sinful lands were all the same. For example, the Blood Ape realm, the Star realm, and our Sword realm are considered lucky. At the very least, we managed to preserve our legacies. As for the Dark realm, they were destroyed because of that great battle. All of their people and living beings were killed. Su Zimo fell silent. The Empyrean era, the Hadal era, the War era, the All-Heaven era, the Dark era, the Star era. Great emperors from so many eras had been invincible in their respective eras and stood at the pinnacle of all beings, but they'd all chosen to defy the heavens. Alas, they'd lost miserably in the end and died. This was a heaven-defying battle. Even after so many years had passed, Su Zimo was still able to faintly sense the devastation of those peerless battles through the river of time. Of course, he still had many doubts in his heart. When Wu Dao's original body underwent the heavenly tribulation, 8 lightning phantoms had appeared. Other than the 9 heavens Shen and V Empress, the 9 Nether Emperor, the Dozhan Emperor, the All-Heaven Emperor, the Dark Emperor, and the Star Emperor, there were 2 more. They were the Great Emperor of Light and the Great Emperor of Infinity. There were no Buddhists from the world of light or the heavenly realm in the 10 great sinners. Which side were the two martial monarchs on back then? The infernal emperor seemed to be on the side of the celestial court. Su Zimo guessed that the consciousness trapped in the Avicii hell was the lord of hell. As for one of the 10 great sinful lands, there was a sinful land called hell. If that was the case, why would the great emperor of light and the great emperor of Avicii appear in the 10th tribulation of the true martial heavenly tribulation with the other great emperors? Of course, Su Zimo still had a big question in his heart. What? Su Zimo asked. Why did the great emperors of all heaven and the others fight against that colossus? Why did they defy the heavens? I don't know. The old man with the iron crown shook his head. As for the reason, perhaps only the powerhouses who lived in that era and participated in that battle know. Countless years have passed, and the truth of the past has long been lost in the river of time. Who can truly say for sure? He took a deep breath. Sword masters, if this is something that has been passed down verbally, why didn't you tell the other sword cultivators? Why did you hide it? The old man with the iron crown smiled wryly. How many sword cultivators do you think will believe this if we tell them now? The young man fell silent. Even they would find it hard to accept this sudden news, let alone other sword cultivators. After so many years, their hatred and enmity toward the sinful spirits had seeped deep into their bones. Who knew how much of their blood had been stained on their hands? But now, the 3 sword masters were suddenly telling them that there was more to it than meets the eye, that the sinful spirits might be innocent. They cultivated the sword Tao to slay demons and uphold justice. But now, the sinful spirits they'd slain might not be sinful, and the righteousness they upheld might not be. This was tantamount to breaking the sword Tao they'd held fast to for so many years. Do you know why it has to be passed down verbally? The thin old man asked Su Zimo and the others. Records left behind will be erased, so this is the only way, Yulan answered. That's only one of the reasons. The thin old man continued, the other reason is that the celestial bestowment world doesn't allow this rumor to spread. The more people who know about it, the easier it is to be exposed. If news of this reaches the celestial bestowment world, it'll be a disaster for Sword World. The fat old man also sighed. Even if you know and believe this, what can you do? So many great emperors have failed. The thin old man said, the blood ape world of this generation was originally a super world, but because of this, it clashed with the celestial bestowment world, resulting in the blood ape calamity. More than 10 imperial emperors of the blood ape race died, and countless clansmen died. They were reduced to a higher world. If the old ape of this generation hadn't submitted in the end, they might have even been wiped out. And this is only the strength of the celestial bestowment world. The blood ape race is naturally warlike and unruly. The old ape is even more so. Back then he was willing to submit to the celestial bestowment world. Who knows how much humiliation and pain he endured. Later on, the blood ape race didn't go to the celestial bestowment world not because of the blood ape calamity, but because the blood ape race didn't have the face to face the descendants of their ancestors. The 3 sword masters sighed and sighed with emotion. Su Zimo vaguely understood the old man's dilemma. The second rumor was that they were worried about bringing trouble to Sword World, so they naturally didn't dare to mention it to other sword cultivators. The first rumor came from the celestial bestowment world. They knew it was a lie, but they didn't want to tell other sword cultivators. That was why they'd concealed the matter. The celestial bestowment world is only the tip of the iceberg, the thin old man said. It's used to monitor and patrol the 3,000 worlds. That's why it's so special and transcendent in the 3,000 worlds. Su Zimo nodded. Making an enemy out of the celestial bestowment world was challenging the celestial court behind it. You just said that the celestial bestowment world was temporarily closed and you were expelled. You weren't even allowed to exchange your contributions for treasures. Yes. Lu Yun nodded. Although this was targeted at all of the 3,000 worlds, I felt that the celestial bestowment world was targeting us. After all, Su Zimo had benefited the most from the fiend battlefield. Once the celestial bestowment world was closed and all of the 3,000 worlds were expelled, Su Zimo would be in grave danger. The celestial bestowment world might have been behind the great battle that had taken place later. There's no need to doubt it. This is a warning from the celestial bestowment world to Sword World. Why is that? He asked with a frown. The old man with the iron crown said, perhaps it's because of the great all-heaven emperor, or perhaps it's for some other reason. Chapter 29:18. Everyone chatted for a long time. After the three sword masters repeatedly reminded them not to spread the news of the great emperor of all heaven, everyone left the myriad sword palace. The hall became cold and cheerless again. Only the three sword masters were left. Tai Tu, it's too risky for you to reveal this matter. The skinny old man frowned. If this matter reaches the ears of the cultivators of the celestial tribute world, Sword World will definitely be in trouble. The fat old man stopped smiling and pondered. The 8 of them are fine, but Su Zimo has just joined Sword World after all. He might not have deep feelings for Sword World. Moreover, when he joined the Sword World, he once mentioned that he might leave one day. The old man with the iron crown said, when he joined the Sword Dimension, I told him that I wouldn't restrict his freedom. From today onwards, it's up to him whether he stays or leaves, or establishes any power in the outside world. Leaving him in the Sword World is to form a good relationship with him. This child has a carefree personality and is open and upright. He definitely won't be a shameless snitch. The skinny old man nodded and said, I don't think there's a problem with him. The fat old man smiled bitterly and sighed. It's just that the 2 of us don't have much lifespan left. Tai Tu, you're not young either. You've already passed your peak and your combat strength is gradually declining. Apart from the 3 of us, there's no one else who can inherit Sword World's peak Imperial Emperors. That's why I'm so worried. The 3 sword masters knew very well. Although there were more than 10 Imperial Emperors in Sword World, most of them were only ordinary Imperial Emperors. If they truly encountered a calamity, only peak Imperial Emperors could protect Sword World's inheritance. The old man with the iron crown fell silent. The situation that the fat old man was worried about was the current situation of Sword World. Although Sword World was a super world, it was not completely free of hidden dangers. Stone World, Heaven's Eye World, Witch World, other worlds, and even the Celestial Tribute World, countless pairs of eyes were staring at Sword World, waiting for the right opportunity. It was also because of this that the 3 of them did not choose to take revenge on these worlds after discussing the matter of Su Zimo being surrounded by dozens of kings. If Sword World was at its peak, how could they allow other worlds to bully them like this? Even if dozens of king-level experts died, the Iron Crown Elder still wouldn't give up. No matter what, he had to personally go to these realms to demand an explanation. What about the Patriarch of the Academy? The skinny old man suddenly asked. When the old man with the iron crown heard this, his eyes narrowed slightly. Killing intent surged as he stood up and said coldly, Forget about the other realms, but we can't let this person go. If it weren't for the timely arrival of the Patriarch of the Academy and the old man with the iron crown, the battle outside the Celestial Tribute World would never have happened. Moreover, Su Zimo had already fled to the Sword World, yet the Academy Patriarch was still lingering around like a ghost and dared to make a move. He even concealed the secrets of heaven and schemed against him. This caused the old man with the iron crown to be filled with killing intent. The fat elder nodded and said, I've heard that the Patriarch of the Academy is a peerless man with a perfect plan. If he's still alive, he may attack Su Zimo in the future. We can't let him live. There's no time to lose. I'll head to the Heaven Realm immediately. The old man with the iron crown sneered and said, I want to see what methods the Patriarch of the Academy has to provoke the Sword World. This was indeed beyond the Academy Patriarch's expectations. According to his plan, after he killed Su Zimo, he could easily escape. He could also perfectly frame Su Zimo's death on the Cold Eye Monarch and the others. He wouldn't be exposed at all. However, he didn't expect that Wu Dao himself would appear and almost kill him. I'll go with you. The skinny old man also stood up and said, The Heaven Realm is a super realm after all. Once you descend, you will definitely arouse the vigilance of the Heaven Realm's Imperial Emperors. The fat elder also nodded and said, Although the Heaven Realm is divided into the Immortal, Buddhist, and Demon domains in recent years, peak Imperial Emperors have risen in the 3 domains. They can't be underestimated. Even the World Devastation Demon Emperor who died tens of millions of years ago came back to life. It's unbelievable. No need. The old man with the iron crown waved his hand and said, The Heaven and Earth Academy is only located in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, one of the 9 heavens immortal domains. The Buddhist and Demon domains shouldn't interfere. Moreover, as an Imperial Emperor, the Academy Patriarch killed the true spirit. I want to see which Imperial Emperor of the Heaven Realm is shameless enough to stand up and protect him. After returning to the buried Sword Peak, Su Zimo looked at the towering mountain peak where the cave abode was located. His heart skipped a beat as he suddenly thought of another matter. The Celestial Tribute World didn't just cover up the truth of the past, nor did they just erase many records. they might have also erased some people. Great Emperor Zhongtian was one of them. In the areas that Su Zimo had been to, whether it was the immortal sects, immortal kingdoms or a great realm, there had never been any records of Great Emperor Zhongtian. The only trace of Great Emperor Zhongtian was in the tomb under the Heaven Realm's demon Denver. It was there that Wu Dao's original body saw a huge stone tablet with the Heaven Burial Scripture engraved on it. Moreover, not long after the Heaven Burial Scripture was revealed, the stone tablet began to collapse, as if it wasn't tolerated by this world. He only knew the name of Great Emperor Zhongtian from Demonish Ji. According to her, it seemed that the 9 Abyss Emperors' memories were very secretive about Great Emperor Zhongtian. Su Zimo had cultivated the Heaven Burial Scripture for many years. He had once thought that the so-called Heaven Burial meant burying the heavens. But now he thought of another possibility. Perhaps Great Emperor Zhongtian didn't want to bury the heavens, but the heavenly court. At the thought of Great Emperor Zhongtian, a thought suddenly flashed through Su Zimo's mind. There seemed to be an answer to a question that had been buried in his heart for a long time. Great Emperor Zhongtian, Heaven Burial Scripture. World Devastator Demon Emperor, Imperial Emperor Bo Sun, Imperial Emperor Qin Mu, the tomb of a great emperor, resurrected from the dead, Tomb Keeper. Countless information and clues intertwined in Su Zimo's mind. Many names flashed through his mind and gradually, a possible truth was gathered. So that's how it is? Thinking of this possibility, Su Zimo's heart trembled. He was shocked and murmured softly. In that case, the heavenly court was probably. After a long time, Su Zimo took a deep breath and gradually calmed his mind. Over the years, as the cultivation of his 2 true bodies continued to improve, they traveled to more and more places and learned of many unknown ancient secrets. Some doubts were gradually solved, but there were still other doubts. What exactly was the heavenly court? Where did it come from? What was the meaning of the heavenly court's existence? Why did it set up the celestial court to inspect and patrol the middle worlds? Although he knew the name of the heavenly court, Su Zimo's understanding of the heavenly court was still a blur. He already knew the origins of the so-called evil spirits and sinful spirits. They were the descendants of the great emperors who challenged the heavenly court back then and were defeated. But what were the evil spirits? Perhaps the master of the evil spirits was the demon master? Why did they challenge the heavenly court? What was the role of the hell court, the ghost world and even the netherworld? There were too many doubts hidden in the fog. But Su Zimo believed that he was gradually getting closer to the truth. Even he himself might not be able to avoid being dragged into the chaos that would affect all 3,000 worlds. Chapter 29-19. After returning to his residence, Su Zimo prepared to cultivate in seclusion. This time it wasn't just Qinglian's true body. Wu Dao's true body was also going to cultivate in seclusion. Originally, Wu Dao's true body had planned to leave for the great wilderness after dealing with the hidden threat of the Academy Patriarch. But this time his 2 true bodies had gained too much. Wu Dao's true body had devoured the grotto heavens of more than a dozen kings of the celestial realm in the Hadal Sin grounds, and dozens more in the cosmos. More importantly, he had also taken the 3 pure jade booklet back from the Academy Patriarch's hands. This taboo manual was now in the hands of Qinglian's true body. Wu Dao's true body didn't need to carry a taboo manual around at all times. He could also read the 3 pure jade booklet with the help of the spirit potency art. If he completely refined these grotto heavens and comprehended the taboo manual at the same time, Wu Dao's true body might even have a chance to improve his cultivation. Therefore, Wu Dao's true body didn't leave immediately. Instead, he found a star, opened a residence and cultivated in seclusion. Qinglian's true body had gained even more. Not to mention the 3 pure jade booklet, the 6 Ding and 6 Jia secret methods, and the storage pouches of dozens of kings, just the 20-odd supreme true spirit Dao fruits in the fiend battlefield alone was enough for him to digest for a long time. In the secret room of the residence, Su Zimo took out the 3 pure jade booklet. The 3 jade slips floated quietly in front of him, emitting a faint purple, green and red light. After many twists and turns, the 3 pure jade booklet had finally returned to his hands. Actually, when Lu Yun's group and the kings of the 3,000 realms chased over and saw the deaths of the Cold Eye King and the others, Su Zimo had another thought. That was to frame the Academy Patriarch for this matter. However, he quickly rejected this idea. Not to mention whether the experts of the 6 super realms would believe it or not. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to find the Academy Patriarch. This was because the Patriarch of the Academy was very cautious. He would definitely hide himself after being exposed and would not show up in a short time. And if the powerhouses of the 6 superworlds couldn't find the Academy Patriarch, they would definitely vent their anger on Jianghu Academy. Given the cruel and cold-blooded style of the Heavenly Eye clan, none of the cultivators of Jianghu Academy would be spared. Even if Jianghu Academy was destroyed and all the disciples of the Academy were killed, the Patriarch of the Academy wouldn't appear. Su Zimo did not have deep feelings for Jianghu Academy. However, some people in the Academy like Yang Ruoxu and senior sister Imo Qing should not be implicated by this matter. Thus, he decided to inform the iron-crowned old man and his 2 companions about this matter. It was because he knew very well that even if Iron Crown Old Man and the other 2 arrived at Cosmos Academy, they wouldn't willfully slaughter the innocent. Su Zimo gradually gathered his thoughts and discarded all distracting thoughts. With a thought of his divine sense, the 3 jade slips in front of him slowly opened up. At the same time, 2 purple flames gradually rose in Su Zimo's eyes. His 2 true bodies were reading this taboo mystic manual at the same time. However, Qinglian's true body chose to cultivate it. As for Wu Dao, he really did not cultivate it. Instead, he chose to integrate the many profundities of the 3 pure jade manual into the martial field as much as possible. In fact, Wu Dao's true body did not truly cultivate the cultivation techniques and mystic arts of the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend races, or even the taboo mystic manuals. He only used Wu Dao's furnace to refine the Dao techniques contained in these cultivation techniques and mystic arts and fuse them into his body. He fused them into Wu Dao's purgatory to deduce his own Dao techniques. Heavenly Realm. Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. Jianghu Academy Place of True Teachings. In a simple and elegant cave abode, a beautiful woman held a brush in her hand and gently drew on the rice paper in front of her. There was a snow-white butterfly on her shoulder. Its wings fluttered slightly as if it was afraid of disturbing this woman. Painting Fairy, Imo Qing. Ever since she learned that junior brother Su had been buried in the arch tomb more than 2,000 years ago, she had returned to her past self. She stayed in her cave abode all year round, aloof from worldly affairs and quiet. Imo Qing did not seem to be any different from before. However, Bingdai had been by her side all year round and could still sense many subtle changes. All these years, Imo Qing had never drawn a portrait. Sometimes she would stop drawing and stare blankly at a certain spot in the cave abode. No one knew what she was thinking about. It was only at times like this that her face would reveal some emotion. Sometimes she would subconsciously smile. Sometimes she would reveal a hint of sadness. All these years, Imo Qing had become even more silent. During those years she would often talk to Bingdai. Whenever she talked about someone or something, her beautiful eyes would shine with excitement. In Bingdai's eyes, the Imo Qing of those years was more like a lively fairy with joy, anger, sorrow and joy. All these years something seemed to be missing from Imo Qing. Her eyes were still beautiful and moving, but they did not have the same spirit as before. Right then, there was a series of hurried knocks on the door of the cave abode, accompanied by sobbing. Senior sister Imo Qing, it's me. I'm Chi Hong. Something happened to Ruoxu. Those people want to kill him. No one in the academy dares to help him. I really can't find anyone. Senior sister Imo Qing, please help me. Please? Imo Qing seemed to be lost in her thoughts as if she couldn't hear the cries outside. Bingdai sighed. All these years, Imo Qing would often appear in such a state. It was not that she could not hear it on purpose, but she was in a state where she could not extricate herself and could not sense anything outside. Bingdai opened her mouth slightly and released a gust of cold air. Imo Qing's body trembled slightly as he gradually regained his senses. The cries in his ears were getting closer and clearer. What's wrong? Imo Qing could tell that it was Princess Chi Hong's voice. She hurriedly stood up and walked out of the cave abode. She saw Princess Chi Hong lying on the ground. Senior sister Imo Qing, I beg you. Princess Chi Hong grabbed Imo Qing's arms tightly. Her face was filled with tears and she was emotional. Her voice was choked and she could not continue speaking. Imo Qing's gaze landed on Princess Chi Hong's tummy. It was slightly bulging. It was clear that she was pregnant. Junior sister Chi Hong, get up first. Don't disturb the baby. Tell me slowly what's going on. Imo Qing helped Princess Chi Hong up hurriedly. Princess Chi Hong seemed to have thought of the bloodline in her tummy as well and tried her best to calm herself down. She sobbed. Ruoxia never believed that junior brother Su would betray the academy for no reason. For more than 2,000 years he insisted on searching for the truth. However, junior brother Su's crimes have already been confirmed by the Patriarch and no one dares to question him. Ruoxa's insistence is akin to questioning the patriarch. As such, many fellow disciples of the academy see him as a thorn in their side and often join forces to suppress and bully him. Mo Qing remained silent. Back then, the scene that happened in the Cosmos Palace was still fresh in her memory. Even in front of the patriarch of the academy, Yang Ruoxu still dared to confront the latter with his righteous spirit and voice his suspicions. Mo Qing remained silent at the side. Although she did not believe it in her heart, she did not have the courage to suspect the patriarch of the academy. Compared to Yang Ruoxu, she was timid. From that moment onwards, she knew that Yang Ruoxu would not be able to do anything in the academy in the future. She had heard of some of the unfair bullying that Yang Ruoxu had encountered over the years as well. However, there was nothing she could do. That was because she knew that without the silent consent of the patriarch of the academy, how could the cultivators below be so brazen? Chapter 29-20. Princess Qihong sobbed and said, "Today is Junior Brother Su's death anniversary." Ruoxu went to Junior Brother Su's cave abode to pay respects to him but was seen by Jianghu and the others. Without giving him a chance to explain, they joined forces to capture him and send him to the enforcement platform. Mo Qing frowned slightly. Junior Brother Yang had been searching for the truth all these years, but he knew his situation well. He was not rash and had been more cautious in his actions in the sect. Although there were countless pairs of eyes staring at him at all times, no one was able to catch him doing anything wrong. Even if they wanted to harm him, they could not find a suitable reason. However, they did not know why Junior Brother Yang suddenly went to pay respects to Junior Brother Su and was caught by Jianghu and the others. Ever since Junior Brother Su died and the Moonlight Sword Immortal was severely injured in the Nine Heavens Immortal domain, Jianghu was the most famous and the strongest among the core disciples of the academy. "Where are the elders?" Mo Qing asked. Qihong said, "The elders are all here, but they have been silent." Yang Ruoxu insisted on searching for the truth because he suspected the patriarch of the academy. The elders did not dare to speak up for Yang Ruoxu. Looking at the sobbing Qihong, Mo Qing's heart that had been silent for many years suddenly felt unfair. She clenched her fists and said, "Let's go. I'll accompany you." Qingkuan Academy. A sky-level sect like Qingkuan Academy would definitely have a powerful sect protecting Immortal Array outside. Without notification, outsiders would not be able to enter. At this moment, in the dense forest outside the academy, there were two figures moving forward sneakily, approaching the academy's mountain gate. To be precise, it was a slightly young man in gray robes with a pale face and no beard. He was carrying a white-haired old man with a weak aura. The man in gray robes carried the old man and took a step to the left and right in the forest. Occasionally he would take 2 steps back before taking a stroll. "Old man Xian." The man in gray robes asked casually, "What if we take the wrong step in this sect protecting Immortal Array? Will we be exposed?" The old man said indifferently, "We will be gone in a moment." The man in gray robes was so frightened that he almost took the wrong step. "Don't scare me." The gray-robed man swallowed his saliva. The old man said, "This immortal formation was personally laid down by the previous patriarch. Even a Grotto Heaven Realm king would be heavily injured if they tried to break through. You just stepped into the True Self realm and triggered the immortal formation, turning you into ashes instantly." The gray-robed man followed the old man's instructions and headed stealthily toward Qingkuan Academy while complaining, "You were beaten to such a state by the patriarch of the academy and are almost crippled. Why did you come back? That patriarch of the academy is so powerful and meticulous. If he finds out, both of us will die." "Don't worry, he's not in the academy now." The old man said, "In the academy, there is a secret realm that even he doesn't know about. If we sneak in there, we can find the elixirs left behind by the previous patriarch. My strength will have a chance to recover to 70%. "What's the use of recovering to 70%? The gray-robed man curled his lips and said, "Even at your peak state, you were beaten to such a state. With 70% of your strength, he could kill you with one finger." "What do you know?" The old man could not hold it in any longer after being mocked by the gray-robed man. He huffed and scolded, "Our lineage is the last hope of Qingkuan Academy. There are many secret manuals, inheritances, and treasures of Qingkuan Academy in that secret realm. Those are all key to rebuilding the academy in the future." Amidst the bickering, 2 figures sneaked into Qingkuan Academy without anyone noticing. Mo Qing's heart sank when she arrived at the law enforcement platform with Princess Qihong. The scene before her was even more serious than she had imagined. All these years, The Grand Elder of the Academy had passed away after exhausting his lifespan and leaving the position of Grand Elder empty. But now, of the remaining 8 elders apart from the 8th Elder of the Academy, the other 7 were all present. Not only that, there were many legacy disciples, inner sect disciples and outer sect disciples gathered around as well. As far as the eye could see, the crowd was densely packed around the law enforcement platform. Almost all the cultivators of Jianghu Academy were mobilized. The moment Mo Qing arrived, she felt a suffocating pressure. On the law enforcement platform, Yang Ruoxu was tied to a copper pillar that pierced the skies with a gigantic chain coiled around his body. He could not move at all. The chain was engraved with runes that suppressed his Dao fruit, bloodline and even the quintessential essence within his body. At that moment, Yang Ruoxu's hair was disheveled and his clothes were tattered. Bloody wounds were inflicted on his body by the law enforcement whip in a horrifying manner. Because his strength was suppressed, he could not even heal those wounds on his body. Biak. Zhang Hua wielded a law enforcement whip that was dripping with blood and whipped Yang Ruoxu viciously. With a cold gaze he hollered, "Yang Ruoxu, do you know your crimes?" Yang Ruoxu merely raised his head and looked at Zhang Hua in disdain. Suddenly, he spat a mouthful of blood at Zhang Hua. Fufu. Zhang Hua was not angry and merely chuckled. "Yang Ruoxu, I'll play with you slowly. Let's see how long a traitor like you can last." Zhang Hua raised the law enforcement whip in his hands once more. "Hold on." A voice sounded as Mo Qing descended on the law enforcement platform with Princess Qi Hong. Princess Qi Hong ran to Yang Ruoxu's side while sobbing. She wanted to extend her arms and hug him. However, when she saw the wounds on Yang Ruoxu's body, she did not dare to touch him for fear of causing him even more pain. When Yang Ruoxu heard Princess Qi Hong's voice, he raised his head and smiled at her as though he could not feel the pain on his body. Just like that, the two of them were inches apart and looked at each other. Princess Qi Hong's eyes were red as tears gushed out. "So it's senior sister Mo Qing." When Zhang Hua saw Mo Qing, he raised his brows slightly and cupped his fists. "I know that senior sister Mo Qing is aloof from worldly affairs and is quiet and elegant. I did not intend to alarm you for such a bloody matter. I did not expect that some B***cheese did not know the rules and ran to invite senior sister over." As Zhang Hua spoke, he glared at Princess Qi Hong. Mo Qing took a deep breath and cupped her fists in the direction of the elders. She then turned to Zhang Hua and asked in a deep voice, "What did junior brother Yang do wrong for you to treat him this way?" "He merely went to a ruined cave abode to pay his respects. Even if he did wrong, he should not be punished to this extent. Why do you have to label him as a traitor?" Mo Qing knew clearly that once this crime was confirmed, Yang Ruoxu would definitely be doomed. Zhang Hua had a calm expression. He paid his respects to the traitor of the academy, Su Zimo. This is equivalent to suspecting the patriarch. Isn't that considered as a traitor? I did not kill him directly because he was from the same sect. Instead, I gave him a chance. Chapter 29-21. You tied junior brother Yang up on the enforcement platform to receive your punishment and humiliation in front of everyone. Even with Mo Qing's temper, she could not help but be enraged by Zhang Hua's words. She questioned in a deep voice, "Is this the chance you're giving junior brother Yang?" "Of course." Zhang Hua said, "As long as he's willing to kneel and admit his wrongdoings in front of everyone, the academy will naturally spare his wretched life and expel him from the academy to fend for himself." On the enforcement platform, another perfected immortal shouted, "The patriarch imparted him Dao techniques and taught him cultivation. How dare he doubt the patriarch? A sinner like him doesn't deserve to inherit the Dao techniques of the academy. Even if he admits his wrongdoings, his cultivation must be crippled. That's right, shatter his Dao fruit first." The crowd was riled up. It was not just the enforcement platform. Many cultivators in the crowd below were waving their arms and shouting excitedly. Of course, most of the cultivators were silent. Some of them did not care about the matter and some did not know what was going on. Although some of them sympathized with Yang Ruoxu, they were afraid that they would be implicated. One of the legacy disciples could not stand it and said with a frown, "Senior brother Zhang, just punish him according to the sect rules. There's no need to torture and humiliate junior brother Yang like this. After all, he's from the same sect as us." "Su Yi, what did you say?" Before the legacy disciple could finish, Zhang Hua interrupted him. Zhang Hua's gaze shifted and he looked at the legacy disciple called Su Yi maliciously. He said sinisterly, "I've long guessed that Yang Ruoxu must have accomplices in the same sect for deceiving his master. I didn't expect you to jump out on your own. Senior brother Zhang, what are you talking about? Su Ye's heart sank. Capture him. Zhang Hua waved his hand and pointed at Su Yi. Kill him without mercy if he dares to resist. On the enforcement platform, a few legacy disciples swarmed forward and stopped Su Yi. What are you doing? Su Yi was furious and shouted as he struggled, Zhang Hua, you can always pin a crime on someone. Su Yi, you merely spoke up for junior brother Yang and you want to convict me? What right do you have? Shut up. A group of true immortals tied Su Yi to the other side of the copper pillar and gave him a vicious beating. In the blink of an eye, Su Ye's face was covered in blood and he could no longer speak. Senior brother Zhang, he is powerless to refute and has already admitted his guilt. One of the true immortals looked at Zhang Hua with a flattering smile. Zhang Hua nodded with satisfaction. Seeing this, some of the cultivators who were still feeling indignant lowered their heads and became even more silent. Elders, are you just going to watch? Mo Qing looked at the 7 elders not far away. The 7 elders remained silent. Even the second elder, who was known for his righteousness and was in charge of punishments, did not say a word at this moment. He only stared blankly at this scene. Zhang Hua was another inherited disciple of the Patriarch of the Academy. What Zhang Hua did was actually the order of the Patriarch of the Academy. He dared not object. The first elder once scolded Zhang Hua because of his seniority and went to the palace of heaven and earth to argue with the Patriarch of the Academy. What happened later? He said that his lifespan was exhausted and he passed away. However, who knew? Mo Qing surveyed her surroundings. These cultivators were all from the same sect of the Academy and were familiar faces. However, the excitement and malevolence on the faces of her fellow disciples and the cruelty in their eyes made Mo Qing feel unfamiliar and she shuddered. How did things turn out this way? Heaven and Earth Academy should not have turned out this way. Another old man who was hiding in the secret realm of the Academy lamented the same thing as Mo Qing. What the hell? Lin Xuanji was so angry that his lungs were about to explode when he saw the scene on the law enforcement platform. He could not help but curse. Is Heaven and Earth Academy just a bunch of dogs? What bullsh*t inheritance? I don't care about it. Old man Xian, go look for someone else. Lin Xuanji turned to look at the old man beside him while cursing. Old man Xian looked at the scene on the law enforcement platform and seemed to have aged even more. His heart was filled with sorrow and his eyes were filled with tears. The Academy should not be like this. It should not be like this. Old man Xian murmured to himself. Lin Xuanji wanted to turn and leave. However, he could not bear to see old man Xian like this inside. Initially, Heaven and Earth Academy was not like this. However, for the past hundreds of thousands of years, under the subtle guidance of the Patriarch of the Academy, fellow disciples of the Academy were filled with enmity and even hatred. Su Zimo had sensed it when he first entered the Academy and was targeted as such. It was a good thing for fellow disciples to have competition. For example, sword cultivators of the sword world would spar with fellow disciples, but they valued their relationships more. However, ever since the Patriarch of the Academy took charge of the Academy, he pushed the competition to its limits. If there was a conflict, he would think of ways to kill the other party. The two of them hid in the secret realm and were helpless against everything. Old man Xian had yet to recover from his injuries and Lin Xuanjin had just entered the true self realm. The moment the two of them were exposed, they would not end up any better than Yang Ruoxu, let alone rescue them. Nobody noticed it. In the sky above Chengkuan Academy, there was a figure hidden in the clouds. The figure wore an iron crown and looked down at the Academy, watching everything that was happening on the law enforcement platform coldly. Nobody knew how long he had been here. However, as time passed, the coldness in his eyes intensified and his killing intent was piercing. Yang Ruoxu, you're still not admitting to your crimes. Zhang Hua raised the whip and whipped Yang Ruoxu once more. The whip was so vicious that it tore open his flesh and even revealed his white bones. What crime have I committed? Yang Ruoxu stood upright and refused to submit. Zhang Hua said coldly, you're disrespectful and disobedient for doubting the Patriarch. You're deceiving your master and betraying your ancestors. That's a heinous crime. Can't I doubt the Patriarch when he's done something wrong? Yang Ruoxu retorted. How dare you? Bullsh*t. How can the Patriarch be wrong? Doubting the Patriarch is indeed disgraceful. Without waiting for Zhang Hua to speak, a group of true disciples around him shouted loudly. Yang Ruoxu smiled and said, all these years I've been searching for the truth of what happened back then. I've traveled all over the 9 clouds and met some of the cultivators who were involved back then. Now I know the whole story. For more than 2,000 years, Yang Ruoxu had almost given up on cultivation. He had been trying to find the answer. He had been to the Green Cloud Celestial Realm and met Lin Zhan and his wife. He knew the truth of what happened back then. However, he did not give up. He wanted to find more evidence. Then he went to the Green Cloud Celestial Realm and spent a few hundred years to befriend the perfected immortal under King Yunyu. He obtained some secret details from him. Actually, when Lin Zhan and his wife released the news about the creation, Qinglian, King Yunyu and the other kings who were involved in this matter back then had already realized that they had been tricked by the Academy Patriarch. Creation Qinglian had already been buried in the Emperor's tomb. These kings would naturally not hide this secret for the Academy Patriarch. Yang Ruoxu spent more than 2,000 years traveling around the 9 cloud celestial realm to find out what happened back then. He then compared it with what Lin Zhan and his wife had said and confirmed it. In other people's eyes, this was a little stubborn and even a little foolish. However, he wanted to clear junior brother Su's name. This was where his moral principles lay. He believed that there would be righteousness under the clear sky. Even the overlord of the academy, who could do whatever he wanted, would not be able to suppress it. If you like Eternal Holy King, please add it to your collection. Eternal Holy King Fighting Bar updates the fastest. Chapter 29-22. On the disciplinary platform. Yang Ruoxu stood with his head held high, as if he could not feel the pain in his body. He spoke loudly about what he had seen and heard all these years. There was a commotion in the crowd. "Shut up!" Jianghu shouted and interrupted Yang Ruoxu. At the same time, he raised the disciplinary whip and whipped Yang Ruoxu continuously. Every whip was so deep that his bones could be seen. Yang Ruoxu's body would tremble. However, he refused to give in. He looked coldly at Jianghu and said loudly, "I went to pay my respects to junior brother Su because I knew he was innocent." He was not wrong. He did not let the academy or the patriarch down. It was the patriarch who let him down. It was the patriarch who wanted to take his creation, Qinglian's body. He wanted his life. He had no choice but to resist. Back then, I was the one who brought junior brother Su into the academy. If not for me, he would not have suffered such a calamity. Even if I, Yang Ruoxu, die here today, I will clear his name. "Shut up. Don't let him continue." The group of perfected immortals shouted. "If you don't believe me, you can invite the patriarch over. I will confront him face to face." Yang Ruoxu sneered. Jianghu raised the disciplinary whip again and shouted, "You are a traitor. How dare you confront the patriarch?" Yang Ruoxu's body was almost torn apart by the disciplinary whip in Jianghu's hand. There was a pool of blood at his feet, and his flesh was scattered everywhere. Even so, Yang Ruoxu relied on the noble spirit in his chest and the stubbornness in his heart. He did not back down. His gaze was firm. Princess Qihong cried and shouted. If not for Mo Qing holding her back, she would have rushed forward and suffered with Yang Ruoxu. The disciples of the academy below looked at this scene with complicated expressions on their faces. Many of them did not understand. What? Was the truth so important? Why was he so persistent? Why was he so stubborn? Why was he so stubborn? Some academy disciples even mocked softly and said disdainfully, "What a fool." Jianghu's eyes flashed fiercely. He suddenly went forward and slapped Yang Ruoxu's glabella. He grabbed. Yang Ruoxu's Dao fruit had landed in Jianghu's palm. "You're still being stubborn? Watch me cripple your Dao fruit." Jianghu exerted force in his palm and condensed spiritual ether. With a cracking sound, he crushed Yang Ruoxu's fruit of the way. Countless great path techniques dissipated between heaven and earth, and the pieces of the fruit of the way fell to the ground. Heaven and earth suddenly fell into a temporary standstill. Mo Qing opened her mouth slightly. She did not expect Jianghu to be so ruthless as to destroy Yang Ruoxu's Dao fruit. Crippling Yang Ruoxu's cultivation was even crueler than killing him. Even if he could keep his life, it would be very difficult for him to survive in the cultivation world if he was expelled from the academy and had no cultivation. "Rasu." Princess Qihong let out a sorrowful cry as she broke free from Mo Qing's grasp and rushed to Yang Ruoxu's side. After losing the Dao fruit, Yang Ruoxu's aura became even weaker. Originally he was heavily injured, but he still had the Dao fruit in his spiritual sea, so he was able to keep himself alive. And now, this anger was about to dissipate. "Qihong, I'm sorry." Yang Ruoxu lowered her head and looked at Qihong, who was paralyzed at her feet. Deep guilt and reluctance flashed in her eyes. Of course, Jianghu could kill Yang Ruoxu directly, but that would not be enough to vent his hatred. He could only display his capabilities by making Yang Ruoxia submit to him in front of everyone and confess to the patriarch of the academy. Initially, Jianghu could not do anything to Yang Ruoxia. However, when he saw Princess Qi Hong looking at her abdomen, his heart skipped a beat and his lips curled. Yang Ruoxia, is it so difficult for you to confess? Suddenly Jianghu spoke, even if you don't want to think for yourself, shouldn't you think for your child? Yang Ruoxia's expression changed as he used the last of his strength to grit his teeth and holler, Jianghu, what are you trying to do? This is my matter and has nothing to do with others. Don't implicate the innocent. Fufu. When Jianghu saw Yang Ruoxia's reaction, he was even more pleased as he chuckled. Princess Qi Hong and her child are not innocent. Jianghu realized that he had grasped Yang Ruoxia's weakness and continued, this child is a sinner the moment he's born and will definitely be looked down upon and bullied. What should I do? Why don't I take him under my wing and personally teach him the Tao? I'll also tell him that his father is a sinner who betrayed his master and ancestors. He's a traitor of the academy. I'll tell him not to be like his father in the future. Jianghu, how dare you? Yang Ruoxia was so agitated that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Kneel and confess your sins. With a smile on his face, Jianghu pointed in front of him and said a few words indifferently. Enough. Mo Qing could not stand it anymore. She stepped forward and said loudly, Jianghu, let's not talk about whether junior brother Yang is telling the truth. How dare you threaten him with his child? Are you still human? Jianghu glanced at Mo Qing and frowned slightly. As one of the 4 fairies, Mo Qing was famous not only in Chengkuan Academy but also in the 9 Firmament Immortal Realm. I heard that senior sister Mo Qing has an affair with the traitor Su Zimo? At this moment, a voice came from the crowd. I think so. Senior sister Mo Qing has a good relationship with Su Zimo in the past. She's even stood up for him a few times. Senior sister Mo Qing is so protective of Yang Ruoxia. Does she believe Su Zimo and suspect the patriarch? So what if she's a painting immortal? She can't suspect the patriarch. A commotion broke out in the crowd. Mo Qing looked around her. Many cultivators began to look at her in a different light. This was the same look they had when they looked at Yang Ruoxia just now. They were like a pack of hungry wolves that wanted to pounce on her and tear her to pieces. Jianghu smiled at Mo Qing and said, Senior sister Mo Qing, as you can see, everyone is suspicious of you. Why don't you explain yourself? As long as you admit that Su Zimo is a traitor and draw a line between you and him, we won't make things difficult for you today. Mo Qing was furious. She retorted, I won't admit it. What are you going to do about it? Then you're still a traitor. Tie her up and tear her face apart. 2 of the fairies said fiercely. For many years, the reputation of the fairies in the academy was occupied by the painting immortal alone. Mo Qing was always high and mighty. No matter how hard they worked, they could never compare to her and could only look up to her. But now they finally saw a chance to pull her down from her pedestal. Come on. Mo Qing slapped her storage bag and took out her sketchbook. She said in a deep voice, Today I'll stand with junior brother Yang. I won't surrender. If anyone dares to touch junior brother Yang again, don't blame me for disregarding our relationship as fellow disciples. Mo Qing, you're betraying the academy. Jianghu hollered. Mo Qing took a deep breath and said the most rebellious and courageous thing she had ever said since she started cultivating. Now that Chengkuan Academy has become like this, so what if I betray it? Chapter 29-23. Hearing this, the eyes of the perfected immortal disciples lit up. Ah! Mo Qing, you're indeed the same as Yang Ruoxia and Su Zimo. You want to betray the academy? You think you're all grown up just because you know how to draw a few paintings? Without the academy, without the patriarch, who would know your name as the painting immortal? Treacherous slut, tear her face apart. Originally, Jianghu and the others really had no excuse to deal with Mo Qing. But just now, after forcing Mo Qing to say those words, they finally found a weakness and an excuse. Some of the disciples of the academy looked at this scene silently and felt a chill in their hearts. There were still countless disciples shouting and celebrating. Even if they wanted to stand on Mo Qing's side, they didn't dare to make a sound. At this moment, even the slightest voice of doubt would be picked out by Jianghu and the others, and they would be accused of betraying the sect. So the Chengkuan Academy is full of inhumane dogs. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from midair. Everyone subconsciously looked in the direction of the voice, only to see an old man in midair. He had an iron crown on his head and stood with his hands behind his back, his gaze cold. Oh. The expressions of the elders on the law enforcement platform changed slightly, and they all stood up. Among them, none of them noticed when the old man with the iron crown appeared. Even with their divine senses, they were unable to detect the other party's cultivation. The elders looked at each other and didn't act rashly. The second elder's face was gloomy as he asked in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist, how may I address you? What are you doing in the Jianghu Academy?" "I'm here to kill," the old man with the iron crown said indifferently. The elder's heart skipped a beat. From the looks of it, the other party didn't come with good intentions. The elders hurriedly sent out a message with their divine senses, preparing to activate the sect protection immortal array. "Were you killing?" the second elder asked in a deep voice. The old man with the iron crown said slowly, "The Academy Patriarch." When these 4 words were said, the entire academy was in an uproar. "How dare you? You're courting death. Where did this old man come from? How dare he behave so atrociously in the Jianghu Academy?" Waves of curses instantly came from the crowd. The old man with the iron crown's gaze swept past those who were cursing just now, and a sword light flashed in his eyes. Bo, bo, bo. Clouds of blood mist erupted from the crowd. The old man with the iron crown didn't even move a finger. Just now, the group of academy disciples who were cursing and swearing were all dead. Among them there was even a true disciple. Everyone gasped in shock. What kind of method was this? What kind of power was this? The scene instantly quieted down. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. It was as if everyone was choked by an invisible force, not daring to make a sound. The 7 academy elders had solemn expressions as they prepared to activate the sect-protecting grand array. The second elder narrowed his eyes and asked in a low voice, "Why do you want to kill the patriarch of the academy?" The old man with the iron crown said calmly, "The patriarch of the academy killed a peak master of our world just because his cultivation was 2 realms higher. Do you think he should be killed?" Many disciples of the academy secretly shook their heads. His cultivation was 2 major realms higher than the other parties, yet he still personally made a move. This was indeed beneath his dignity and could even be considered shameless. But in the Jianghu Academy, who dared to question the patriarch? Who knows who your peak master is? He's definitely not a good person. That's right. Anyone that the patriarch of the academy wants to kill must be someone who deserves to die. If there's nothing wrong with your peak master, why would the patriarch kill him? A few voices could be heard from the crowd. The old man with the iron crown shifted his gaze and a cold glint flashed. The few academy disciples who spoke earlier died on the spot once more. The 7 academy elders hollered and conjured hand seals, releasing streams of spirit light that entered the void to activate the sect-protecting immortal formation. At the same time, the 7 academy elders propped up their respective grotto heavens and surrounded the old man with the iron crown. His hands were still behind his back and he did not move at all. Suddenly, a dazzling sword light burst forth from his body and charged towards the barrier of the sect-protecting grand array. Boom, boom, boom. After a series of collisions, the sect-protecting immortal formation that could severely injure immortal kings was penetrated by the sword chi. In the blink of an eye, it was riddled with holes and completely collapsed. The old man with the iron crown waved his wide sleeves and flung them towards the 7 academy elders. A blazing white light appeared. The 7 academy elders had just rushed forward. Before they could get close to the old man with the iron crown, the 7 grotto heavens behind them were shattered by the old man's sleeves. The 7 academy elders spat out mouthfuls of blood. Their bodies were almost smashed as they fell onto the law enforcement platform and lost their ability to fight. The 7 academy elders were shocked. Although the old man with the iron crown did not kill them, streams of sword chi surged into their bodies like a sword chi storm, wreaking havoc and destroying their vitality. Under such circumstances, even if they were lucky enough to survive, their cultivation would most likely be crippled. Some of the academy kings who were about to step forward were so frightened that their faces turned pale when they saw this scene. They hurriedly retreated. This kind of power had completely exceeded their understanding. Even immortal kings did not dare to act rashly, let alone core disciples, earth immortals and heaven immortals. This kind of aura that belonged to an imperial emperor expert enveloped the entire Jianghu Academy. All the cultivators could feel that unstoppable and terrifying pressure. The old man with the iron crown looked around and asked indifferently, "I'll ask again. Should the patriarch of the academy be killed?" The entire place was silent. All the disciples of the academy looked at this scene in horror. The old man with the iron crown looked at Jianghu and the others on the law enforcement platform and asked again, "Do you think the patriarch of the academy should be killed?" Jianghu had long stopped talking when he saw that the situation was bad. However, he did not expect that the old man with the iron crown would still target him. "Yes, he should be killed." Jianghu swallowed his saliva and forced a laugh. The group of true disciples behind him also hurriedly nodded their heads in agreement. "Oh." The old man with the iron crown raised his brows slightly and asked again, "You didn't even allow me to question the patriarch of the academy. Now he should be killed?" Jianghu hurriedly explained, "The patriarch relied on his high cultivation to bully the weak. Even I can't stand by and watch. Indeed, he should be killed, yes." The old man with the iron crown nodded and said, "If you say he should be killed, all of you should die too." The old man with the iron crown stretched out a hand and gently grabbed in the direction of Jianghu and the others. Poof! A ball of sword light descended and engulfed Jianghu and the other core disciples. Instantly, they were torn into pieces and their essence spirits were destroyed along with their bodies. On the law enforcement platform, Jianghu and the others stood extremely close to Yang Ruoxu. Earlier on, the ball of sword light brushed past Yang Ruoxu but did not injure him at all. Sword rain. The old man with the iron crown pointed to the skies. There was a thunderous rumble as a clap of thunder exploded. Dark clouds gathered in the skies and it suddenly rained. Although it was not dense, every single raindrop was incomparably sharp and emitted a cold aura. They were like needles and swords that contained terrifying lethality. When they descended upon the academy, they could penetrate everything. The entire academy was enveloped by the sword rain. All the buildings, palaces and cave abodes could not withstand the impact of the sword rain and collapsed rapidly. Some of the academy disciples could not dodge in time and even had their heads pierced by the sword rain, dying on the spot. End of chapter. Chapter 29-24. The academy is in trouble. Hurry and ask the patriarch to come out. The patriarch is not in the cosmic palace. Given the patriarch's divine foresight, do you think he doesn't know about this? He must have fled long ago. Many disciples of the academy gradually understood that the patriarch would not appear. Even if Cosmic Academy was reduced to ruins and destroyed. Even if all of them died here, the patriarch of the academy would not care. In the heavy rain, noise, clamor and roars intertwined in a chaotic manner. Countless disciples of the academy fled outside. Including the 7 elders, the other kings and legacy disciples of the academy fled outside in a panic, not daring to stay in the academy. Everyone looked at the old man with the iron crown with deep fear in their eyes. If the patriarch of the academy did not deserve to be killed, he would definitely die. However, Jianghu and the others clearly said that the patriarch of the academy deserved to be killed and would not be able to escape death. Nobody knew why the old man with the iron crown killed. Under such circumstances, everyone could only think of escaping Cosmic Academy and getting as far away from the old man as possible. However, there was something strange. Some disciples of the academy thought that they would definitely die when they were drenched by the sword rain. However, they were shocked to discover that the raindrops that landed on them did not possess any lethality and were the most ordinary raindrops. However, no matter how fast some of the disciples of the academy fled, they were not spared by the sword rain. The sword rain poured down and became denser. The entire Jianghu Academy had already been reduced to ruins under the downpour of the sword rain. In a secret ground of the academy, Lin Xuanji was secretly speechless when he saw everything before him. Old Xian sighed. The situation that Master was most worried about still happened. When Cosmic Academy was first established, the 10th Elder was in the dark and his greatest use was to hide himself. If the Academy was destroyed, he could preserve the legacy of the Academy and pass it down. Before Master passed away, he repeatedly reminded me that the Patriarch of the Academy was too scheming and ambitious and would easily bring trouble to the Academy. To think that his words came true. Lin Xuanji turned back to look at old Xian and frowned. He asked, "Old man Xian, Jianghu Academy is about to be destroyed. Why don't you look sad at all?" Elder Xian laughed and said, "That's good too. The original Academy has already been ruined by the Patriarch of the Academy, and it's hard to recover from the past. Without destruction there can be no construction. Only by destroying the original Academy can we rebuild the universe. Look at those disciples of the Academy." Elder Xian pointed at the fleeing Academy cultivators and said, These cultivators were just defending the academy and the patriarch of the academy. However, once the academy is in trouble, they run faster than anyone else. However, the person who just said that he would betray the academy has not left yet. Elder Xian was referring to Yang Ruoxu and Mo Qing, and the others who remained at the law enforcement platform. Due to the appearance of the old man with the iron crown, this scene was extremely ironic. Elder Xian continued, "Those academy disciples make it sound nice, but it's actually just an excuse for them to bully their fellow disciples. They don't have any feelings for their fellow disciples who cultivated and lived with them. They were so vicious. Do you really expect them to stay and share the calamity of the academy?" Lin Xuanji raised his brows slightly and said, "If that's the case, we have to thank the old man with the iron crown? No matter what, that old man was vicious enough to kill many academy disciples." Elder Xian smiled and said, "If you observe carefully, you will realize that the old man with the iron crown did not kill the innocent. The people he killed just now were all cultivators who had bullied Yang Ruoxu and Mo Qing, or others who kicked them when they were down. He did not even harm the silent academy disciples. Instead, he left them with a chance to live." Indeed. Lin Xuanji nodded after watching for a while. It seemed like the reason why the old man with the iron crown killed Zhang Hua and the others was not because of whether the patriarch of the academy deserved to be killed. The old man with the iron crown wanted to kill Zhang Hua and the others to avenge Yang Ruoxu. On the law enforcement platform, Mo Qing and the others hurried forward and released the chains on Yang Ruoxu and Su Yi, helping them down. The rain poured down on them, but it did not hurt them at all. The old man with the iron crown did not leave and stood in midair the entire time with his eyes closed, emitting the terrifying aura of an Emperor Realm expert. Yang Ruoxu and the Scarlet Rainbow Princess hugged each other. They had survived. However, Yang Ruoxu's cultivation was crippled as well. Under the Rain of Swords, Jianghu Academy was reduced to ruins. Apart from the few people on the law enforcement platform, there were also some disciples of the academy who did not leave and stayed behind in the ruins. There were also some disciples of the academy who had fled, but they turned back. No matter what, they still had an unforgettable feeling towards Jianghu Academy. Of course, the academy disciples who stayed were the minority. The destruction of Jianghu Academy was a foregone conclusion. Furthermore, the old man with the iron crown in midair did not leave the entire time. Nobody knew if he would attack once more and start a massacre. Every single cultivator who stayed in the ruins of the academy took a huge risk and endured immense pressure. The Rain of Swords lasted for an entire day and night. Finally it stopped. The old man with the iron crown opened his eyes and descended on the law enforcement platform in a flash. Mo Qing had a nervous expression as she stood up immediately and stood in front of Yang Ruoxu and the others. There were not many legacy disciples who stayed. Although she knew that she could not stop the old man with the iron crown, she still had to stand out. "Don't be nervous," the old man with the iron crown said gently and nodded at Mo Qing. Thereafter, he looked at Yang Ruoxu who was behind her and said, "Yang Ruoxu, if I'm not wrong, you should be cultivating the Overwhelming Righteousness Sutra." Yang Ruoxu nodded. The old man with the iron crown said, "I'm from the Sword World and my Dao name is Tai Guan. I entered the Emperor Realm 5 million years ago. Are you willing to join the Sword World?" His words confirmed everyone's guess. The person before them was indeed an Emperor Realm expert. Furthermore, the old man with the iron crown took the initiative to invite Yang Ruoxu to join the Sword World. The Scarlet Rainbow Princess was overjoyed. The old man with the iron crown continued, "The vast righteous scripture that you're cultivating is most suitable for the way of the sword. If you join the Sword World, you can come under my tutelage and I'll personally teach you the Tao." Many academy disciples were shocked when they heard that. An Emperor Realm expert was taking the initiative to take Yang Ruoxu as his disciple and teach him the Tao technique. What kind of opportunity was this? Yang Ruoxu was stunned. If it was anyone else, they would have been overjoyed and kowtowed. However, he still had feelings for Jianghu Academy and this familiar homeland that others could not understand. He questioned the patriarch of the academy only because the patriarch of the academy had done something wrong. However, he had never thought of leaving the academy. More than anyone else, he hoped that the academy would become better. In the Sword World, you will definitely not be slandered, bullied, and wronged like this. The old man with the iron crown continued, "Your aptitude and talent are not top-notch." After a pause, the old man with the iron crown continued, "But you are very good. If the Sword World can have you, it will be the Sword World's blessing. If I can take you as my disciple, it will be my fortune." When these words were spoken, Everyone was moved. Chapter 29-25. Who was this old man with the iron crown before them? He had invited a perfected immortal whose cultivation had been crippled to join the sword world and promised to personally impart his Dao techniques. Now he even gave such a high evaluation. Who wouldn't be shocked? The old man with the iron crown did not hide his admiration for Yang Ruoxu. For a moment, Yang Ruoxu was overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. However, he quickly calmed down and looked at the ruins around him in silence. After a while, Yang Ruoxu looked at the old man with the iron crown and bowed slightly. He shook his head apologetically and guiltily. The old man with the iron crown was not surprised by Yang Ruoxu's reaction. But there was still a sense of regret in his heart. He could feel that Yang Ruoxu had a character that was praiseworthy and even admirable. Even in the face of his own master, in the face of a power that was far stronger than him, in the face of countless cultivators' criticism, and in the face of pressure from all directions, Yang Ruoxu still chose to stick to the truth, uphold justice, and refuse to yield. The price was, of course, tragic. But even so, Yang Ruoxu did not back down or waver. In this world, in the cultivation world, there were too many people who compromised and gave in for the sake of survival, for the sake of living, for the sake of immortality. People like Yang Ruoxu would even be mocked and ridiculed. Many cultivators who thought that they were smart would think that he was a fool, an idiot who did not know how to adapt. But the old man with the iron crown knew that since ancient times, it was because of these people who were not very smart, and insisted on upholding justice, pursuing the truth, and resisting injustice that brought a glimmer of light and warmth to the cruel and dark cultivation world. Even the old man with the iron crown was not sure if he would be as fearless and courageous as Yang Ruoxu when facing such a power that he could not resist. But he knew that he could only be considered an immortal. Only Yang Ruoxu was worthy of being called a hero among immortals. Senior Ruoxu's Dao fruit has been crippled. Does he still have a chance to cultivate? Princess Qihong was filled with worry but looked at the old man with the iron crown with a glimmer of hope. Of course. The old man with the iron crown nodded and said with certainty. Princess Qihong's worry turned into joy. She quickly looked at Yang Ruoxu and advised softly, Ruoxu, why don't you join this senior's sect? This is your opportunity. Princess Qihong didn't have any other thoughts. She only wanted Yang Ruoxu to survive and become better. Yang Ruoxu remained silent. The old man with the iron crown smiled faintly and said, There's no need to make things difficult for him. Even if he doesn't become my disciple, I will still pass this Dao technique to you. This? Yang Ruoxu's expression turned solemn as he hurriedly bowed and said, Senior, I'm too ashamed to accept your kindness. He was already extremely grateful that the old man with the iron crown had saved him. Furthermore, Elder Taiguan was so sincere in wanting to take him in as a disciple. He felt extremely guilty for rejecting Elder Taiguan, so how could he still have the face to accept Elder Taiguan's Dao technique inheritance? You don't have to feel burdened. The old man with the iron crown waved his hand and said, It's not like this cultivation method can't be taught to outsiders in my sword world. The person who created this cultivation method had a broad mind, preaching the Dao to the common people. He made this cultivation method public so that everyone in the world could cultivate it. Mo Qing, Yang Ruoxu, and the others were stunned. There was such a person in the world? Not to mention cultivation methods, the vast majority of cultivator sects would choose to keep the more precious divine abilities and secret arts a secret. Even if it was the most ordinary method, normal people would keep it to themselves. Princess Qihong comforted Yang Ruoxu when she heard this. That's good. This cultivation method should be more ordinary and not some powerful or precious method. You don't have to feel burdened by it. That's not true. The old man with the iron crown shook his head and said, This cultivation method is comparable to the cultivation methods of the immortal, Buddhist, and demon sects that have been passed down for many years. It will definitely be recorded in the annals of history and affect all living things. This time Mo Qing, Yang Ruoxu, and the others were stunned. The old man with the iron crown was an emperor realm expert after all. He definitely wouldn't make up such nonsense. However, no one understood. Since it was such a powerful cultivation method, why would it be made public so that Yang Ruoxu didn't have to feel burdened? The old man with the iron crown smiled and said, That's because the cultivator who created this cultivation method is an old friend of yours. If he knows that you've encountered such a calamity, he will definitely pass this cultivation method to you. Yang Ruoxu was confused. An old friend of his? There was such a cultivator among his old friends? This person could create a cultivation method that was comparable to the immortal, Buddhist, and demon sects and was passed down through the ages? Yang Ruoxia never would have thought that he had befriended such a big shot. How should I address this old friend of mine? Yang Ruoxia asked in confusion. The old man with the iron crown didn't say anything. He only smiled and said, "You'll definitely meet again one day." Yang Ruoxia frowned and was even more confused. However, he thought about it and couldn't help but feel enlightened. He looked at the old man with the iron crown with gratitude. This senior has put in a lot of effort. He must be afraid that I'll be under too much pressure, so he purposely said this to comfort me. Actually, the old friend that the old man with the iron crown was referring to was Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo's identity had yet to be revealed and it wasn't convenient for the old man with the iron crown to make a decision for Su Zimo to tell Yang Ruoxia and the others about this. Su Zimo presided over Burial Sword Peak. Apart from inheriting the Tao of Burial Sword, Wu Dao's cultivation method had long been made public. Naturally, the old man with the iron crown knew about it as well. However, most cultivators of the sword realm had already cultivated other dermic formulations and couldn't change their cultivation methods to cultivate Wu Dao. However, Yang Ruoxia's situation was rather special. His Dao fruit was crippled. If he wanted to cultivate the Dao techniques of the immortal, Buddhist, and demon sects, it would be difficult for him to condense a new Dao fruit in his consciousness. However, he could cultivate Wu Dao and forge the true Wu Dao body. A faint light was released from the glabella of the old man with the iron crown and entered Yang Ruoxia's consciousness. Immediately after, two inheritances appeared in Yang Ruoxia's mind. One of them was a cultivation dermic formulation. Wu Dao, Yang Ruoxia murmured softly. The old man with the iron crown said, "Actually, you have the spirit of Wu Dao in you. You are brave and fearless. Moreover, although your Dao fruit is shattered, the righteous aura in your chest is still there." In fact, that was indeed the case. After going through this ordeal, Yang Ruoxia's Dao fruit was shattered and his cultivation was crippled. However, the righteous aura in his body became more condensed and majestic. It was also because of this righteous aura that Yang Ruoxia's life was hanging on. Otherwise he would have been beaten to death long ago. The old man with the iron crown continued, "With the help of this righteous aura, your foundation is still there. Even if you cultivate again, you will make rapid progress." This righteous aura was the key to the Righteous Aura Sutra. If Yang Ruoxia bowed his head and retreated on the law enforcement platform, the righteous aura in his chest would dissipate even if he could keep his Dao fruit. His cultivation would be truly crippled. The old man with the iron crown continued, "Other than Wu Dao, there is another inheritance, the righteous sword Dao. This sword Dao is derived from the Daoyuo sword manual. Only you are qualified to cultivate this sword Dao. I hope this sword Dao will be able to shine brilliantly in your hands and illuminate the heavens." Chapter 29-26. Although Yang Ruoxia didn't join the sword world, the old man still chose to pass on two important Dao techniques to him. "Senior?" Yang Ruoxia didn't know what to say. At this moment, it seemed that any words of thanks would be much lighter than before. The old man saw through Yang Ruoxia's thoughts and just waved his hand casually. He said in a carefree manner, "Today's matter is over. We'll meet again if fate wills it. If you have the chance, come to the sword world for a walk." With that, the old man turned around and left, disappearing into the void. After the old man left, some former disciples of the academy returned. Everyone looked at the ruins in front of them with complicated expressions, and their hearts were filled with emotions. Heaven and Earth Academy, one of the four major celestial sects, had been reduced to ruins in just a day. This was the power of an imperial emperor. It was easy to flatten a heaven-level force. Although the old man with the iron crown didn't start a massacre and most of the academy disciples survived, only a few cultivators were willing to return. This was because all the academy disciples knew that without the academy patriarch and the elders being severely injured, Heaven and Earth Academy would only exist in name. In less than a day, this news would spread throughout the divine firmament continent. The three major celestial kingdoms, the three major celestial sects, and even the divine firmament palace might appear to divide Heaven and Earth Academy's territory in spirit veins. Under such circumstances, who would be willing to return? The three major celestial kingdoms and three major celestial sects were the best destinations for the academy disciples. "Senior brother Yang, senior sister Emo Qing, what are your plans from now on?" A academy disciple asked. Yang Ruoxia shook his head slightly. Emo Qing also remained silent. They didn't have any plans or directions in their hearts. At this moment, a white-haired old man appeared out of nowhere. Behind him was a gray-robed man with a pale face and no beard. Elder Shin? Many Academy disciples quickly recognized the old man's identity. On the surface, Elder Shin was the gatekeeper of the Earth-level secret pavilion in Heaven and Earth Academy. All the Academy disciples recognized him. Of course, no one could see Elder Shin's cultivation base. No one knew his identity as the 10th Elder. However, Elder Shin was very senior in Heaven and Earth Academy. All the Academy disciples had a trace of respect for him. Yang Ruoxu. Elder Shin said, "If you don't have anywhere to go, why don't you rebuild the universe and establish another academy?" Rebuild the universe and establish the academy once more? Yang Ruoxu murmured and asked subconsciously, "But who will do it? The elders of the academy have all fled, and the immortal kings have all scattered. I'm afraid they won't return." Elder Shin pointed at Yang Ruoxu and said, "Only you are qualified to rebuild Qingkuan Academy. Senior brother Yang, come. I see ye admire you." Su Yi was the first to agree. "Yes, senior brother Yang, I also admire you. Senior brother Yang, I didn't dare to say anything when they were making things difficult for you, but in fact I believe that you are right." Many disciples of the academy chimed in. "How can I?" Yang Ruoxu shook her head and said, "My cultivation has been crippled. In terms of strength, I can't compare to senior sister Mo Qin. In terms of experience, I can't compare to Elder Shin." Elder Shin waved his hand and interrupted Yang Ruoxu. He said, "You cultivate the righteous scripture. You are the hope of Qingkuan Academy. Only you can bear the responsibility of establishing your heart for the heavens and earth, establishing your life for the people, inheriting the lost knowledge of the past saints, and establishing peace for all generations. This is the original intention of the academy." Elder Shin knew that only a hero like Yang Ruoxu could take the role of the academy's patriarch and put Qingkuan Academy on the right track. Yang Ruoxu looked at the surrounding ruins and smiled bitterly. "If we want to rebuild the academy, I'm afraid we will have to change places. The spiritual energy here has been cut off by that elder, and it's difficult to cultivate. It's okay. As long as we cultivate together, it will be a new academy." Everyone knew that rebuilding the academy would be difficult. There were no immortal kings in the academy, and they were just the most ordinary earth-level forces. They might have to go through many hardships. However, at this moment, one could see that these disciples were full of vitality and new hope. "Elder Shin, what about me?" Lin Xuanji asked expectantly. "My cultivation is not weak, and I'm your direct disciple. Shouldn't I be an elder in the academy?" "Your bullsh *t. Elder Shin scolded him mercilessly. "Since you inherited my lineage, you are destined to not be in the open. You can only cultivate in secret. Only then can you hide your identity and protect the academy's legacy." "Ha!" Lin Xuanji clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "I've been tricked by you, old man." Time flew. It had been more than 500 years since that earth-shattering battle in the demon battlefield. Even now, the true ones of the various worlds were still spreading the news that the peak master of the ninth sword peak of the sword world had killed more than 20 supreme true spirits. Of course, the dozens of kings who had died in the starry sky had attracted countless guesses. More than 500 years had passed, and no one knew who had killed the Cold Eye King and the others. Over these years, the middle world had not been peaceful. One of the 10 sinful grounds had been destroyed, and countless Rakshasas had escaped. The celestial tribute world had already issued a bounty, but no one had found any clues. There were also frequent conflicts between the various worlds. For example, the Dragon world and the Wudong world, the Kuan world and the Peng world. In recent years they were like fire and water, and a world war could break out at any time. Once such a war broke out, it would definitely sweep in many high-grade, mid-grade and even low-grade worlds. Some of the internal conflicts within the realms were also playing out intensely. For example, in the Heaven world and the Nine Heavens Immortal realm, there were already 3 immortal realms under Immortal Emperor Qinmu. The Great Wasteland world was also constantly at war. A mysterious force called Tsang was fighting everywhere, and it was unstoppable. It had already occupied more than half of the Great Wasteland world, and only a little resistance was left. On this day, in a cave on an ancient planet, a purple-robed man wearing a silver mask came out of seclusion. After more than 500 years of cultivation, Wu Dao's original body had integrated the Dao techniques contained in the 3 pure jade book into the Wu Dao purgatory, and refined dozens of grotto heavens into the Yuanwu grotto heaven. The martial field and the Yuanwu Grotto heaven had both broken through and reached the complete realm at the same time. When he reached the martial field realm, he could refine boundary emperors. Now that the martial field realm had reached the complete realm, it had burned and refined many ancient cultivation techniques and secret techniques. There were even several forbidden secret techniques. Wu Dao's original body predicted that the Wu Dao purgatory at the complete realm could even refine imperial emperors who had just stepped into the martial emperor realm. If he faced the Academy Patriarch again, even without using the prison-suppressing cauldron, Wu Dao's original body could fight him. It's time. After Wu Dao's original body came out of seclusion, he looked in the direction of the great wasteland world, took a deep breath and left. Chapter 29-27. Great Wilderness Domain. At the border between Eastern Wilderness and Southern Wilderness, the void suddenly split open, and a purple figure slowly walked out. He wore a silver mask and his eyes were deep. It was Wu Dao's original body. He only had a rough understanding of the Great Wilderness Domain. The Great Wilderness Domain was vast, and it was generally divided into 4 major domains: Eastern Wilderness, Southern Wilderness, Western Wilderness, and Northern Wilderness. Originally, the 4 domains were guarded by their own demon thearchs, and they did not interfere with each other. However, many years ago, a mysterious force called Song appeared in the Great Wilderness and fought everywhere. It was almost invincible, and it swept through the entire Great Wilderness Domain. No one knew where Song came from. They only knew that Song's strength was unfathomable. However, when Song arrived at the Eastern Wasteland, he encountered an extremely powerful obstruction. The ruler of Eastern Wilderness was the most powerful demon the Arch in the Great Wilderness Domain, the Blood Butterfly Demon the Arch. The flames of war between the two sides continued. As time passed, a great battle that shook the entire Great Wilderness finally erupted. In that battle, the Blood Butterfly Demon the Arch was severely injured and disappeared. Song also suffered heavy losses, and its conquering of Eastern Wilderness had to stop temporarily. Not long after, the Blood Butterfly Demon the Arch returned, and she was even stronger than before. She led the demons under her command to counterattack and reclaim their lost territory. Song retreated step by step. Later on, an extremely powerful force suddenly appeared on Song's side. Many imperial emperors appeared as if they had appeared out of thin air. Among them there was an imperial emperor called Qin Yan. He was invincible and invincible. In Eastern Wilderness, only the Blood Butterfly Demon the Arch could fight him head-on. However, the number of imperial emperors on Song's side far exceeded that of Eastern Wilderness. Moreover, other than Imperial Emperor Qin Yan, there were also some peak imperial emperors. Whether it was their top combat strength, demon kings or demon thearchs, they were overwhelming Eastern Wilderness. After a few battles, Eastern Wilderness began to retreat again. Song had already unified Southern Wilderness, Western Wilderness, and Northern Wilderness. Now it was slowly encroaching on Eastern Wilderness. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before Song unified the Great Wilderness Domain. Wu Dao's original body identified the direction and headed toward Eastern Wilderness. Eastern Wilderness. The Taya mountain range bordered Southern Wilderness. In the Eastern Wilderness there were many mountain ranges. The Taya mountain range was one of the 9 mountain ranges in the Eastern Wilderness. Within the mountain range there were countless beasts running amok. At the intersection of the mountain ranges, there were also scattered towns and tribes, forming a number of large and small countries. Every country would have at least one king realm expert to oversee it. And all the kings in the Taya mountain range had to obey the orders of the Taya mountain range's master, Demon Emperor Tianwu. The Gayu country was one of the countries in the Taya mountain range. It was located in the southernmost part of the Taya mountain range, adjacent to the Southern Wilderness. Its location was extremely important as it belonged to the Eastern Wilderness. Over the years, Song and the Eastern Wasteland had fought many battles here. In the mountain ranges and ravines between the East Wasteland and the South Wasteland, countless corpses and bones were piled up. Blood flowed like a river, and it would not dry up even after 10,000 years. On this day night fell. In the main hall of the Gayu state. More than 100 demon generals gathered here, waiting for demon monarch Gayu. Due to the many years of war in the Great Wasteland Domain, they were mostly called demon generals and demon kings. As for Shen demons, earth demons and heaven demons, they were all classified as demon soldiers. Heavenly demons were typically the leaders of 10,000 demons. Earth demons were typically the leaders of 1,000 demons. Demon generals corresponded to the true self realm and commanded all the demon soldiers. Although these demon generals had different levels of cultivation, they were all the mainstays of the Gayu country. They were the generals of a region and held extremely important positions. Hee hee. In the crowd, a dignified demon general laughed and said, "Us three brothers have become demon generals almost one after the other. Congratulations, we should have a good drink. It's best to call Little Fox." Beside him, a tall woman with slender legs and a tall figure in green clothes suddenly spoke. This green-clothed woman's long hair was tied up, making her look valiant, clean and neat. On the other side there was a burly man with golden hair. He looked quite dignified, but his aura was weaker in front of the other two. The golden-haired man said, "Little Fox cultivated with the Emperor and probably became a demon general long ago. She's even one step ahead of us." Sigh. When the first demon general heard this, he suddenly sighed and lamented, "Ever since the 7 of us ascended, we haven't reunited. I really miss them. I wonder how they're doing after all these years." The golden-haired man nodded and said, "Big brother ascended first and we don't know where he went. Although brother Monkey ascended with us, he landed in a different place. As for brother Yi, there's still no news." The green-dressed woman said, "We're lucky that the 4 of us ascended together and didn't split up." After a pause, the green-dressed woman said, "But Little Fox is cultivating with the Emperor of the Fox clan. We haven't seen her for many years. Now the war at the border is intense. We can't spare any time." The dignified demon general suddenly laughed and said, "But don't worry, we'll wait here in the vast wilderness. We'll definitely see Big Brother. Big Brother has a special relationship with the blood butterfly demon emperor." Back in the infinite wilderness, the two of them were in front of everyone. The green-dressed woman smiled and could not help but scold jokingly, "Don't be so weird. Those who don't know might think that something happened between the two of them." The golden-haired man also laughed and said, "Brother Tiger, if Big Brother finds out, he'll definitely teach you a lesson." How would he know? The dignified demon general did not think much of it and pursed his lips. The 3 of them were Tiger, Immortal Crane Ching Ching and Golden Lion from Tianhuang mainland, who were sworn brothers with Su Zimo. Right. Ching Ching asked, "Do you know why the Demon King has gathered all the demon generals here?" "I'm not sure." Tiger and Golden Lion shook their heads. Right then a middle-aged man slowly walked out from the back of the hall. He was dressed in black scale armor and his eyes were slightly protruding as he surveyed the surroundings. The hall quickly quietened down. "Demon King Gayu. I've gathered everyone here because I have something important to inform you." Demon King Gayu said slowly, "Over the years, Tsang has been unstoppable. I'm prepared to submit." After he finished speaking, all the demon generals were stunned for a moment, and the hall instantly fell silent. Demon King Gaiyu's words had indeed caught the demon generals off guard. But soon a demon general stood out and said in a deep voice, "Since the Demon King is prepared to submit, I'll also follow the Demon King and join Tsang. Count me in. I've long wanted to submit. Anyway, I can't stop them." One by one the demon generals stood out and expressed their stance. Of course, some were silent and some were still watching. Tiger and the other 2 frowned and had ugly expressions. On the one hand, the 3 of them did not want to join Tsang. On the other hand, if they chose to submit to Tsang, it would mean betraying the blood butterfly demon emperor. The 3 of them had seen with their own eyes that the appearance of the blood butterfly demon emperor saved infinite wilderness. How could they betray her? Chapter 29-28. Soon, nearly half of the 100 demon generals stood up and chose to follow Demon Monarch Gayu. Looking at the remaining silent demon generals, Demon Monarch Gayu smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. We've been fighting for so many years and it's fate. No matter what choice you make, I can understand." Hearing this, the remaining demon generals' expressions softened, and they began to discuss softly. "Actually, I really don't want to submit to Tsang. At least I can live in Eastern Wilderness and retain a trace of dignity. If we submit to Tsang, we'll be reduced to the lowest level of ants." Indeed, under Tsang's rule, the living beings of the Grand Wilderness live in fear all day long. They live in fear and it's better to die. Over the years, how many races in the Grand Wilderness domain have been wiped out by Tsang? In their eyes, the living beings of the Grand Wilderness are like weeds that can be harvested at will. The blood butterfly demon empress has been in Eastern Wilderness for so many years. How powerful is she? However, she has never bullied other weak races. Most of the people who died in her hands are the strongest in this world. A few demon generals stood up and cupped their hands at Demon Monarch Gayu. We're still willing to stay in Eastern Wilderness and follow the Blood Butterfly Demon Empress. The Golden Lion did not think much and instinctively wanted to stand up. The tiger's eyes turned and he suddenly frowned. He pulled him back and shook his head slightly. They had known each other for so many years. Even if the tiger did not say a word, the Golden Lion could roughly guess. At that moment, Demon Monarch Gayu said, "Everyone has their own aspirations. I can understand. You can leave." The demon generals took a deep breath and bowed to Demon Monarch Gayu before turning to leave. However, before they could leave the main hall, they felt a strong sense of danger descend. A few cold lights flashed behind them. It was too fast. The demon generals did not have time to react. Under the gazes of all the demons generals were cut in half by a few sharp fish scales. Blood and organs splattered on the ground. The demon generals' essence souls were not spared. They were killed by a few fish scales. This was the power of a demon monarch. Only Demon Monarch Gayu could kill the demon generals in an instant without giving them any chance to react. The smell of blood instantly spread out and filled the hall. When the remaining Fey generals saw this scene and smelled the thick and pungent smell of blood, they couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines and their hearts turn cold. Golden Lion felt a lingering fear in its heart. If the tiger had not grabbed him just now, he would have fallen into this pool of blood and become a corpse. However, at the same time, fury surged in the Golden Lion's heart and his golden hair stood on end. "Old 7, hold it in. Don't be rash." Sensing the anger in the Golden Lion's heart, the tiger hurriedly reminded it through telepathy. Who else made the same choice as them? Demon Monarch Gayu asked calmly. A few demon generals had just died, so who would dare to stand out now? Stepping forward now was no different from courting death. The demon generals who had been watching silently and hesitating all stood on the other side and chose to follow Demon Monarch Gayu. On the other side of the hall, the number of demon generals was decreasing. Not long after, only 3 figures were left. They were Tiger, Ching, and Golden Lion. "Let's go." Tiger grabbed Golden Lion and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness, wanting to pull him over. The 3 of them were too conspicuous standing on this side. Ching also persuaded, "Save our lives first. We'll find another opportunity to escape and send this news to Demon Emperor Jianghu." Golden Lion clenched his fists and remained silent for a long time before compromising. Even though his heart was filled with endless anger, he knew that if he continued to persist, not only would he die here, but he would also implicate Tiger and Ching. The 3 of them also walked in the other direction. "Wait." Demon Monarch Gayu's voice suddenly sounded with a hint of coldness. Demon Monarch Gayu said faintly, "Hubadian, your lion brother seems to be very unwilling." "He's not unwilling," Tiger hurriedly said with a cheeky smile. He was just scared silly by the Demon Monarch's powerful methods and couldn't recover for a moment. "Demon Monarch, you're peerless and wise. Even I was stunned just now." Demon Monarch Gayu was unmoved by Tiger's fawning and flattery. He didn't seem to intend to let Golden Lion off. He continued, "How can we prove that he's willing? After all, I'm the most reasonable person. I never force others." Tiger cursed in his heart, but on the surface he still smiled and asked, "He's definitely willing. He's just a little slow to react. You'd better shut up. I didn't ask you to speak." Before Tiger could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Demon Monarch Gayu. Demon Monarch Gayu pointed at Golden Lion and said coldly, "Say it yourself." Golden Lion clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, "I'm willing to follow the Demon Monarch." "Louder, I can't hear you." Demon Monarch Gayu said indifferently. Ching frowned. Tiger gradually stopped smiling. "I'm willing to follow the Demon Monarch." Golden Lion took a deep breath and said loudly, "Come here and kneel here." Demon Monarch Gayu pointed in front of him arrogantly. He wanted to see how long this Golden Lion could endure. Golden Lion didn't say a word, but his body was trembling slightly. He wasn't enduring it for himself. If it were him, he would have gone all out long ago. However, he knew that if he couldn't get through this, he would implicate Tiger and Ching. Golden Lion walked towards Demon Monarch Gayu. However, just as he took a step forward, his left and right arms were grabbed by a large and small palm. It was Tiger and Ching. Before Golden Lion could react, he saw Tiger come in front of him and point at the high and mighty Demon Monarch Gayu. He cursed, "Kneel my ass." Not to mention the surrounding demon generals, even Demon Monarch Gayu was stunned by the scolding. Tiger didn't stop and continued to scold, "I'm giving you face by calling you Demon Monarch. Do you really think you're someone important? You're just a fart to me. The golden lion was worried about implicating the two of them. How could Tiger not see that? He would never watch the golden lion suffer such grievances alone. Furthermore, he had already seen through it. Demon Monarch Guy, you had no intention of letting the golden lion off. If the golden lion was in trouble, he and Qing Qing wouldn't sit idly by. Even if the three of them joined forces, they wouldn't be able to withstand Demon Monarch Guy Yu's attack. Since they couldn't escape death, they might as well scold him to their heart's content first. Good, good, good. Demon Monarch Guy Yu stood up and laughed in anger. He said coldly, since you're bent on dying, I'll fulfill your wish. Tiger also laughed loudly and said, fulfill your wish. I'm not afraid to tell you that there are 7 of us brothers. If you dare to kill the 3 of us, the remaining 4 will definitely seek revenge on you. Demon Monarch Guy Yu sneered and said, dragons don't live with snakes and phoenixes don't dance with chickens. Who can be sworn brothers with the 3 of you? I'll kill all of these small fries no matter how many come. Is that so? Right at this moment, an ordinary voice sounded from outside the hall. Try killing me. Chapter 29:29. Tiger, Qing Qing, and the golden lion shuddered when they heard this voice. Their minds went blank. They didn't even hear what the person said. Although they hadn't seen him for many years, they were all too familiar with this voice. But how was this possible? It was impossible. The 3 of them suspected that they were hallucinating and couldn't believe it. For some reason, the 3 of them looked at each other but didn't dare to look back. Even if it was just an illusion, the 3 of them wanted this illusion to stay in this moment for a while longer. The other demon generals, including Demon King Guy Yu, naturally didn't think too much. They looked in the direction of the voice and saw a man wearing a silver mask and a purple robe strolling into the hall. At first glance, this person didn't reveal any terrifying aura. Demon King Guy Yu didn't bat an eyelid. He released his divine perception and scanned the purple-robed man several times, but he didn't find anything. He should be a demon king. Demon King Guy Yu thought. Even if he hadn't seen the arch-experts of the vast wilderness, he had heard of them. However, he had never heard of any arch-expert who would dress like this. If he wasn't a demon arch, he was most likely a demon king. If he was just a demon general and dared to take the initiative to come here, he really didn't know what was good for him. Of course, if this purple-robed man was brothers with the other 3, it was very likely that he would rush out to die. Who are you? Demon King Guy Yu asked slowly after making some guesses. Even if the other party was a demon king, it was impossible for him to kill him. He could guard a country at the border of the eastern wilderness because he had cultivated to the peak of the Grotto Heaven realm and was a peak-stage demon king. Even if the worst-case scenario was that the other party's battle prowess was above his, he would still be able to escape. From the moment he entered the hall, Wu Dao's original body didn't look at Demon King Guy Yu. His gaze was always on the 3 figures with their backs to him. The 3 of them trembled slightly. It was obvious that their hearts were beating violently. Wu Dao's original body couldn't be bothered with Demon King Guy Yu's question. As if he didn't hear him, he only asked the tiger and the other 2, the 3 of you are standing there. Are you not going to acknowledge me as your big brother? Hearing this, old tiger and the other 2 were overjoyed. They quickly turned around. Although Wu Dao's main body was wearing a silver mask, Old Tiger and the other 2 recognized him at a glance. This person in front of them was Su Zimo. Big brother? The tiger almost burst into laughter. He was the first to pounce forward and give Wu Dao a big bear hug. Then the golden lion and Qing Qing also rushed over. In the world of cultivation, no matter how deep the relationship between brothers and good friends was, they would not show too much enthusiasm. Such an action seemed to be a little overboard. Wu Dao's main body was among them and he seemed even more out of place. In the eyes of the vast majority of cultivators, Araki Takashi of the Devil Domain was definitely a cold and merciless expert that no one dared to approach. In the eyes of the Yasha King, Wu Dao's true body was the most terrifying person in his heart. But now, facing the hugs of Old Tiger, Qing Qing and Golden Lion, Wu Dao's main body did not push them away. Instead, he enjoyed this rare warmth and joy. At that moment, the 4 of them felt as though they had returned to Tianhuang mainland and dominated Howling Moon Mountain together. Nobody could resist the sincerity and passion of their emotions, not even Wu Dao's main body. Naturally, the 4 of them had a lot to talk about. Even 3 days and 3 nights would not be enough to finish talking. However, at that moment, the four of them were reunited and it seemed as though everything was superfluous. Even the talkative tiger couldn't utter a single word at this moment. His lips trembled a few times and his eyes turned red. Tears welled up in his eyes. Even old tiger felt embarrassed and tried his best to hold it in. However, the moment he tried, his tears flowed instead. F***ck, this is too embarrassing. Old tiger scolded himself internally as he cried. Ching Ching's eyes were red as well. Although the golden lion did not cry, it was grinning foolishly the entire time. Ching Ching rolled her eyes at old tiger and mocked, "You're already so old and yet you're still crying. You're not even embarrassed enough." "Stop talking," old tiger begged with snot and tears running down his face. A stifled laugh sounded from the hall. Demon King Gaiyu could not help but laugh out loud. Initially he thought that Wu Dao's main body was a ruthless character when he saw how calm he was and did not come with good intentions. In fact, he was worried. But now that the four of them were together in a crazed manner, crying and laughing, Demon King Gaiyu realized that he was overthinking. Seems like I was right. Dragons don't live with snakes and phoenixes don't dance with chickens. Raising his brows slightly, Demon King Gaiyu said, "That's all there is to a person who is sworn brothers with the three of you. He seemed like he wanted to kill us earlier on?" Wu Dao's main body ignored Demon King Gaiyu and asked Old Tiger and the other two. At the mention of that, the three of them felt their hearts skip a beat and they composed themselves quickly. The danger before them was not resolved yet. Old Tiger hurriedly reminded him via voice transmission, "Boss, this is a ruthless character. A peak stage demon king, what's your cultivation level?" Wu Dao's main body pondered and said, "According to what you said, he should also be a peak stage king." He had already cultivated his martial domain realm to perfection in the origin martial grotto heaven. According to the realm of the cultivation world, he was indeed a peak stage king. A peak stage king against a peak stage king? Old Tiger rubbed his chin and asked carefully, "Boss, why don't you hold him back here? The three of us will retreat first so as not to drag you down." Pop. Before Old Tiger could finish speaking, Ching Ching slapped the back of his head. "Just kidding?" Old Tiger staggered from the slap and hurriedly corrected himself. Wu Dao's main body said indifferently, "Killing him is very easy." Before he finished speaking, Wu Dao's main body flicked his finger. A cluster of dark green flames floated towards Demon King Gaiyu. It was not fast and its temperature was not high. He could not sense any power. Boom. Chi and blood surged in Demon King Gaiyu's body. He directly propped up his grotto heaven and suppressed the dark green flame. He shouted, "The light of a firefly, how dare you!" Demon King Gaiyu was only halfway through his words when he let out a miserable scream. That seemingly ordinary cluster of dark green flames had actually burned a hole in his grotto heaven. Under the impact of his chi and blood, the flames burned brightly and soared into the sky. His entire grotto heaven was surrounded by this dark green flame from head to toe. It could not be extinguished at all. After Wu Dao's main body reached perfection in the origin martial grotto heaven, the power of the netherworld ghost flame had also increased. Not to mention a peak stage immortal king, even a quasi-emperor expert could easily die in a sea of fire if they did not deal with this netherworld ghost flame well. The netherworld ghost flame burned one's chi and blood. The chi and blood released by Demon King Gaiyu would only increase the power of the netherworld ghost flame greatly. In the blink of an eye, Demon King Gaiyu's grotto heaven was burned full of holes and was about to collapse. He himself was also burned into a skeleton emitting dark green flames. The flesh and blood on his body were rapidly disappearing, turning into nourishment for the netherworld ghost flame. End of this chapter. Chapter 29-30. Even a perfected grotto heaven was surrounded by the netherworld ghost fire. Even Demon Monarch Gaiyu's essence spirit could not escape. Under the horrified gazes of the demon generals, Demon Monarch Gaiyu was reduced to a skeleton in just a few breaths. His essence spirit turned to ashes and he died. The more than 100 demon generals in the hall were greatly shocked. That was a peak stage demon monarch. However, the purple-robed man did not even look at Demon Monarch Gaiyu. He killed him with a casual flick of a flame. What kind of power was that? A quasi-emperor? Or the arch? More importantly, the purple-robed man was clearly on the side of the blood butterfly demon monarch and they had all expressed their allegiance to Song. If the purple-robed man attacked them, he could probably kill them all with a casual breath. The demon generals looked at Wu Dao's true body in fear and trembled, afraid that this ruthless person would attack them. However, Wu Dao's true body did not care about them. His thoughts were on the tiger, Qing Qing, and the golden lion. Your cultivation speed is very fast. Wu Dao's true body sensed their cultivation realm and nodded. The tiger patted his chest and said, "After the three of us descended to the vast wilderness, we fought at the borders all year round. Our cultivation is the result of countless bloody battles." What's there to say? Qing Qing rolled her eyes at the tiger and said, "Compared to Big Brother, we are far inferior." Wu Dao's true body smiled and asked, "Are there only the three of you in the vast wilderness? Is there any news of Monkey, Night Spirit, and Little Fox?" "There's still no news of Brother Monkey and Old Fifth." The golden lion said, "However, Little Fox is also in the vast wilderness. Her opportunities are much better than the three of us. She was favored by an imperial lord of the fox race and was taken in as a personal disciple. Her cultivation realm is probably higher than ours." The tiger said excitedly, "We were just talking about Little Fox. We haven't seen her in a long time and we miss her. Since Big Brother is back, let's go find Little Fox and have a good gathering. If Little Fox sees Big Brother, she'll probably be overjoyed." Qing Qing pursed her lips into a smile. Although the Little Fox was one of the 7 brothers, the others could tell that she was the closest to Su Zimo. Tiger seemed to have thought of something. He winked at Wu Dao and said, "Boss, I'm afraid that the people you want to see the most this time aren't us but other people. Of course I have to see her." Wu Dao's original body nodded and did not hide his thoughts. "But since we're already in the great wilderness, there's no need to rush." Back in Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo had thought that he might be able to meet Dai Yu one day as Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's true body was his greatest reliance ever since he started cultivating. It was also his pride. Even Dai Yu knew nothing about Wu Dao's true identity. Back then, Dai Yu made use of the bloodline phenomenon of the Dragon Phoenix true body to descend on Tianhuang mainland. She was already shocked when she saw the accomplishments of the Dragon Phoenix true body. Qinglian's true body could not escape her senses either. However, she did not sense the existence of Wu Dao's true body. Su Zimo had been looking forward to this day the entire time. The reason why he wanted to come to the great wilderness to look for Dai Yu was not only because he missed her. More than that, it was because Su Zimo wanted to stand in front of Dai Yu and let her take a look. The young man whom she spent countless efforts to change his fate back then had already come this far. He caught up to her when he saw her back view. In fact, he could even fight alongside her. "I'm afraid we'll have to make a trip to Jianghu Hall first." Qing Qing pondered for a moment. There are dozens of countries like Gaiyu in the Taya mountain range. I suspect that Demon King Gaiyu's betrayal is not an isolated case. Let's head to Jianghu Hall first and inform Demon Emperor Jianghu of this matter so that he can be prepared. The Golden Lion nodded and said, "We should indeed inform Demon Emperor Jianghu of such a big matter so that we won't be caught off guard. Let's go." Wu Dao nodded and said, "We're on the way. Tell me about the situation in the eastern wilderness." The martial Dao body only had a general understanding of the Great Wasteland domain. As for the situation in the eastern wilderness domain, he did not know much. Demon King Gaiyu is dead. Those who want to leave can leave. Those who want to stay can stay. The tiger looked at the demon generals in the hall and said in a low voice, "However, when we meet on the battlefield in the future, we will not show mercy." With that, Wu Dao and the other 3 turned and left, heading toward Jianghu Hall in the Taya mountain range. According to the tiger, the master of the Taya mountain range was Demon Emperor Jianghu, who resided in Jianghu Hall. His true body was a mutated tiger demon with 10 tiger tails. There were a total of 9 mountain ranges in the entire eastern wilderness. In each mountain range, there were hundreds of thousands of mountains with many tribes and countries. The territory was comparable to an immortal domain in the heaven domain. The 9 mountain ranges were Earth Mound Mountain Range, where Dragon Emperor Huang Hai presided. Swagger Mountain Range, where Rock Demon Emperor presided. Heshu Mountain Range, where Divine Elephant Demon Emperor presided. Qingqiu Mountain Range, where Nine-Tailed Demon Emperor presided. Liopa Mountain Range, where Kueox Demon Emperor presided. Days Mountain Range, where Baize Demon Emperor presided. Dian Mountain Range, where Sky-Bearing Emperor presided. Boga Mountain Range, where Fei Lian Demon Emperor presided. East Pole Mountain Range, where Black Snake Demon Emperor presided. Taya Mountain Range, where Qianwu Demon Emperor presided. The 9 mountain ranges had 9 demon emperors. Of course, among the 9 demon emperors, their cultivation and combat strength were different. According to the tiger's speculation, the strongest should be Dragon Emperor Huang Hai, Rock Demon Emperor, and Divine Elephant Demon Emperor. Hearing the names of these three, Wu Dao fell into deep thought. There were a total of 12 demon kings in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Among them there were Dragon Emperor Huang Hai, Rock Demon Emperor, and Divine Elephant Demon Emperor. His reverse scale, Rock Wings, Six Fangs Divine Power, and other mystiques all originated from these three demon emperors. In that case, after all these years, these three demon emperors had all become demon emperors. However, the names of the other demon emperors seemed unfamiliar, and did not match the names of the 12 demon kings. Among the 12 demon kings there were Wild Ox, Hell Tiger, Wind Leopard, Divine Chariot, Spirit Turtle, and so on. These demon kings might not have reached the demon emperor realm, so they could not become demon emperors who presided over a mountain range. Qing Qing said, I feel that the nine-tailed demon emperor of Qingqiu mountain range's combat strength might not be weaker than Dragon Emperor Huang Hai and the other two. After a pause, Qing Qing said, by the way, this nine-tailed demon emperor is also from the Fox clan. She took Little Fox as her disciple. That nine-tailed demon emperor is really... At the mention of this demon emperor, the tiger and the golden lion's eyes suddenly became a little strange, with some fear and infatuation. What are you trying to say? Qing Qing stared at the tiger and asked in an unfriendly tone. The tiger's heart skipped a beat and he quickly said seriously, I just want to remind boss, when you see the nine-tailed demon emperor, don't ever look at her. That pair of fox eyes are really seductive. The golden lion also nodded quickly, saying, if you don't pay attention your soul will be taken away. Qing Qing rolled her eyes and said irritably, who's like the two of you? You can't move when you see her and you're drooling on the spot. How embarrassing. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.